welcome to Creative Block. We're your hosts, V.
And Sean. We interview people in the creative industries about their life, work, and hobbies while we doodle jam.
We asked people on our social medias if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts. By the way, hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet already, and you can also follow us on Patreon.
Today, we have with us a special guest, Michael Sweater.
That's me. That's who I am. That's me.
Welcome back. Welcome on to the pod.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
You've
also,
already drawn so many things on here.
You should subscribe and sign up for the Patreon.
Thank you.
Consumers have to see something 6 times before they take action.
I love that. Okay, I love that you start the pod like straight up business mode, and that is actually a real question that
Why would I be on the internet if it wasn't business mode? This ain't games.
I'd be I'd be climbing trees if I wanted to play around. I'm on the internet. I'm sweating inside. We're doing business.
I don't go into the wastelands for fun.
I love that I'm gonna have to wrangle the both of you this entire episode.
I'm sorry.
I'm not, dude.
That's what I love. That's what I love. That's what we're doing. No, but like, okay, we're talking business. That's like a real thing. As an artist who's independent, would you consider yourself to be independent?
Yes. Only because nobody will give me a job. So if anyone's hiring, I'm a very hard worker.
I mean, because you mostly do comics. That's your main thing.
We also work on shows.
I mean, that's where, the bulk of my income comes from comics. I would say probably 25% of my time, my creative time is comics, but that is currently the bulk of the income, which makes no sense, but that is just how it worked out.
We're defying all odds here.
That's true. You're living what is my personal dream. I don't know.
I keep playing the lottery and I haven't won that yet, so... I could be luckier, but I'm very lucky.
What was the main draw for you with comics? Was it something that you always did?
No, I didn't really start drawing until I was like 21 or 22, and I didn't really read comics either. I had a legal incident where I had to not get in trouble legally because I was a very bad boy, and it was basically like, hey, if you don't... I got caught on a graffiti charge. Very stupid. Don't do graffiti. It doesn't make you tough. It doesn't make you cool. Or do it, but don't. It's not really a good idea. But I had to basically for a year not have another legal incident, and I was taking it very seriously. And I was like, I kind of like cartoons. And so I was like, I'm going to learn to animate. And then I looked up how to do that, and I couldn't even draw. I was like, that's not fucking happening. Oh, that's not beeping happening. And so before we started, I was like, I will try not to curse. They were like, just the first 5 minutes, and that did not happen. And
then you're censoring yourself with your own.
I love beeps. That though. That's so funny.
Well, it doesn't work if I don't say it over me saying it in time.
True.
And then I decided comics would be a very easy thing. I didn't read comics. I didn't know anything about comics. And then I never stopped drawing comics.
Did it turn out to be an easy thing?
No. I got really lucky. The only comic I ever read, or the only comics I ever read, there was like this guy Chris Straub, Scott Kurtz, Brad Geiger, Dave Kellett. They had that Webcomics Weekly thing. It was like a podcast that was amazing, especially for me at the time. And I was reading their comics, and I didn't know webcomics were really a thing. I was like, I can't draw cartoons. Maybe I'll do this. And luckily, I was listening to that enough to get a decent sense of what I was supposed to do. And
so that was your creative block. So maybe our goal is to be that for somebody else out there. That was your creative block.
No, this stuff is really important, especially early on. Like, I don't think people who necessarily like grew up, like, comics has like a lot of people who kind of came up in comics, reading comics, knowing cartoonists, and there's not a lot of socializing with the outside world. And I think things like this, especially like, it's so confusing when you first start because none of it makes sense. Like, you can't make sense of it because it does not make sense.
what makes the least amount of sense about it for you? What would you say are the contributing?
Okay. That's so funny that you. Well, I guess you're right. I guess it doesn't make sense to just sit by yourself.
Like for a living, you mean, or for a hobby?
Picture.
Yeah,
no, as a human decision in life.
I kind of get it. For a living, I think it's a really weird idea. Like, it really depends on what your goals are. Like, if you want to do a lot of books and a lot of material, you need to do it for a living. But like, I think for most people's ambitions, it's actually safer and smarter to just do it like 4 hours a couple days a week if you can. And it would be easier to be able to do that by pursuing another job instead of a career in comics. I don't know if the logic of that makes sense.
Explain yourself.
Like in my mind, the idea of building a career in the arts, if you don't have the position and time to do it, I feel that it would have been much smarter for me to figure out how to learn to get an actual job. And then get, like, I had, until pretty recently, I had like a thing every 3 or 4 months. I would like look down at my situation. I'd be like, my life would actually be easier if I actually worked at Target full time and like tried to recalibrate and like had a bunch of roommates for like a year.
Instead of having everything depend on this thing that you started doing late in life and like that kind of thing.
Yeah, and maybe I'm just not very good at this, but it's so much effort to make a living doing it. Like, a lot of the times it feels like, I got very sidetracked just now, but this is like something I think about a lot. It's like the effort put in, it feels like a roundabout path is easier.
Are you saying basically that like just doing it, 100% full time is just so hard because of like it's hard to make money from it, but it would be easier if you had like a part-time gig that would pay rent? Like,
yeah. I'm basically just fantasizing about having taken a different path in life and not harmed myself mentally for the last 10 years making this work.
No, but it's like very real, and it's something that like I think everybody thinks about. Like, I think about that stuff too. Like, I work in animation most of the time, but it takes up so much of my time. I forget if I've said this on the podcast yet, but like a couple months ago, I remember looking at Poon Poon, Goodnight Poon Poon, and like seeing all of the books on my shelf, and I love that manga. But I was looking at it, it's like probably like 5,000 pages. And I was looking at it and I was like, I'm never going to be able to do this in my life because animation takes so much of my time. Yeah. And it took me 4 years to do only 300 pages. And so it's like a real question to like, you know, like if your dream is to have like a body of work that is like a monument, like, you know, so I know that's like stuff I think about too in that sense.
The hard thing to kind of, I'm coming from the position of, in order to make comics, for the last 10 years, my rent has never really been more than $350 or $400 a month.
Oh, yeah.
And I would say about 6 or 7 years of that sporadically in between. I was basically just making it, like between food and that. And I feel like it's hard to see that from the outside necessarily. Because it's like, he's got books.
Yeah.
And like some books I've done do really well, some do not.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, living at below your means, I guess, I think can be a super important part of, like, I guess, business. I mean, I'm not even just with animation or comics or art. It's just like figuring out, like, how does my living situation work with what I'm making?
Yeah. The reality is, I was never going to do this any other way. I just say it so that anyone who thinks it might be different would reconsider. But also, I'm very stupid. I'm not a consistent person. I imagine I could have made more money if I wouldn't do so many different things.
When you say consistent, do you mean that, are you talking about, for example, the internet, like how posting like in a consistent schedule is important, or are you just saying like, I guess what I'm asking is, where is consistency important in your...
I mean, if I would have just picked anything, I think it probably would have... I wouldn't have been happy. But I mean, that's the thing is, like, I don't think posting consistently on a lot of the internet actually matters as much as it did 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think the returns are much lower. But even when it mattered and it would sell me books when I had something go out, I had, like, a period where I, like, got, like, 10,000 followers on Instagram in, like, a month, and then I just stopped posting for, like, 4 months because I just didn't want to do it. Mm-hmm. And I think if I would have forced myself to do it instead of doing other things, that probably would have worked out better. I have no regrets. Like, it was never gonna happen differently. But it would have been nice if I would have been the person who would have done that differently.
That's interesting. Do you know if your work in comics is what got you your foot in the door for animation?
Yeah, I know it is. I'm trying to figure out how much I'm allowed to say about. I don't understand the culture of animation, and I would very much like to get on an actual show at some point, because I've been, like, kind of skirting the edges, but I know it's people have seen my books, and, like, I kind of know specifically who has seen what books and has, like, asked me. I just applied or sent an email to a recruiter for the first time in animation. Like, I'd never done that. It was just people who saw my books and they're like, "You want to do something?"
Oh, that's cool.
I don't know how common that is, though.
I think it's more common than you think.
It's very common. I think we've talked on the pod for people who are curious. There's the Hannah Nystrom episode. That's how she got her gig on Adventure Time. And I think, if you remember, but, like, it's pretty common, like, especially the Adventure Time crew. That's usually how they find people.
On storyboard-driven shows, it's much more common, especially because they want people who have some experience writing, too. So, regular show, almost all of the storyboard artists were sniped from just doing indie comics. Just like you.
Sam Spina. Mm-hmm.
Well, I would love to figure out how to get my books in those rooms. I'm also, like, just going through a thing where it's like, I'm not bored, but I feel like if I don't do certain things, I'm never going to get to do certain things. And so I'm, like, now very much in a space of, like, what am I allowed to do? Like, what can I figure out how to do before? Because it feels to me like once I'm, like, 50, I'm in my 30s. So a lot of my life is, like, what I'm going to do is basically going to be done now. Not necessarily true, but just statistically. So it's one of those, if I'm ever going to get a job on a show, I should probably try to figure out how to do that now. That also might not be true, because I don't know anything about the business at all.
That's so funny that you say that, because you've worked for a while on the show. So tell us a little bit about, like, your animation experience.
I did storyboarding and background design on Summer Camp Island. And then I did background drawings on one of the Adventure Time movies. And then I've done one or two, maybe three or four. I'm not actually entirely sure. I've been picked to draw backgrounds for stuff. I just did one that I don't even really know. I don't even know what network it's for. Yeah. But I just did, like, a bunch of backgrounds for something.
Well, I got news for you. I think you work in animation.
Exactly.
That's more credits than a lot of people have. So so I think that your foot is in. I think that probably the most important part in general from any of that is my advice to you as somebody who's kind of wondering how to stay is keeping up with those crew members that you met if you can. Just try to be a present person, try to be a good person to work with, and try to just keep up with the people that you've met already, because that's your in, you know?
Yeah.
That's so funny. That's like the episode of Creative Luck where we go a little therapy mode.
Yeah, we're normally it's the guest that gives you guys advice. We're giving advice to the guest, and then the guest can give you advice after that.
I got questions. Well, the thing is,
you can ask questions too. That's helpful. I mean, that's helpful for this community.
Conceivably, I'm fine. Like, I don't need to work in animation. But I would, like, really like to write on a show or, like, do something more substantial. And I understand that
is the dream.
I don't know if I was talking about playing the lottery before. I understand I'm probably more likely to win the lottery than do that. But I also don't know where to buy the lottery tickets.
I think about this stuff a lot, and I guess so. We just for our audience right now, if you want to hear from the writers that we've had on the show, we've had Mikey Heller, we've had Sammy
love
Crowley.
Mikey Heller so much.
He is
Spencer Rothbell.
A cool dude, yeah. Spencer Rothbell and Jay and Jake. So definitely. Y'all check out these episodes.
So V, what would you say? What would you say about that? Because I feel like my input would probably be the way to enter that world is it's more likely that if you make one of your cartoons into an animation thing and start building up your writing credits or use that to pitch,
you know what?
That might be a better way to get into the writing part of it. Is if you take the things you already make and pitch it, maybe. But what do you think?
You know what's crazy? Because I actually keep forgetting, but I did write professionally for the first time last year. I wrote 2 scripts for a show made in France, but that will be airing on Disney.
Ooh,
and
wow.
The way I got this gig, because I talked to my manager and I was like, I would love to do more writing. Now I have done 2 scripts. And they were like, buddy, it's gonna be all your network. That's all it's gonna be. And it's true. The way.
And then you fired your management, and then no, I'm just joking.
No, it did hurt a little bit because I was like, but I thought that's what you were gonna do for me.
My network sucks. Yeah,
I hate it. Oh my god.
No.
But I got lucky back in the day. I was like pitching a show, and like one of the producers really liked it, and he paired me up with a writer, and then that writer came visit a couple times. His name is Henry Gifford. He's very talented. He's worked with Disney a lot. He came over to LA. We just kind of we catch up every once in a while, and he asked me if I wanted to write on their show. And
he was like, here's how you can start stealing my jobs. And then he helped you.
But it's funny because I remember doing a panel at Lightbox where in the room I was with Jorge and Rob, and basically we had got a question from the audience, and they were like, what should we do to prep for like pitching and stuff? And I was like, take writing classes. And Rob was like, yeah, steal my job. That was really funny.
Oh no. Yeah.
But it's true. I think it's like networking with other writers. But writing is just so hard to get these jobs. And I think the best way to guarantee you would get a writing job is if you pitch your own show and if it gets picked up. And guess what? That's also winning the lottery.
Yeah. Also, I just remembered I did like a development job for a real thing where I wrote a bunch of scripts. I don't even know if that show got made.
That's so great. You should follow up.
I think I'm fine.
You are. I think, y'all, this is what imposter syndrome looks like.
Yeah, you're just imposter
syndrome. I don't feel like an imposter. I know I can do these jobs.
Oh, you just forget?
Anything that's not like in the moment doesn't exist for me.
Now, you have like amnesia syndrome where you forget all of the jobs that you've worked on.
It does feel like it. I turned in a graphic novel the other day. Or not the other day, the other month. And my editor hit me back and he's like, you used this exact same joke 3 times in this book. And it's like, number one, I wrote that whole book very fast. But also, that's why you have a job.
Wait, what's the joke? Can you tell us the joke?
I don't remember. To be fair, it was a good joke. And he was just like, this is a good joke, but it's in here 3 times. And I think it's just like, when I work, I'm in like a fugue state. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things where like, I didn't have time to actually look at it before I turned it in.
Like, you gotta make just a page of the book like top 3 times I've used this joke and like make it a self-aware thing.
I do think I need a bulletin board of jokes that I feel like I'm likely going to write again. Like I did when I first got into comics, I went to school for like 9 months and I quit because I was like, I can't learn this way. I'm not this kind of person. And I was like, I'm just going to draw like a 2,000 pages of comics and self-publish them. By the time I'm done, I'll be ready. And I ended up getting to like around 1,000 pages of material. And it like wasn't all comics. But I was reading through it the other day and realized there was like 3 or 4 strips I had drawn that the joke is and beats are identical to something I had done in the last year. And it's like, what the hell?
That is so funny. Do you Do you ever take the time to look back at your work, or not?
Never.
So yeah.
I don't have time. There's so much to read, and I've already experienced the book by the time it's done. And like, I feel like I have so many things that like my to read pile is so big. And also, like, sometimes when I like read my own, like, I recently sat down with my girlfriend and reread my book, The Wizard, I did, and I was like, oh, I like this. I did a book with my friend Rachel Dukes, but like, if I try to read something within like a year of having written it, it looks like gibberish. Like, it just looks like noise to me.
Wait, what do you mean?
It just like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, I can't functionally read it because I'm like remembering drawing it at the same time I'm reading it.
That's so interesting.
And then by the time I'm out of that window, I don't remember the book exists. So I don't really read that stuff.
Well, it's like you're literally...
But other people should, because it's great.
That's such a funny... I've never heard that before. It's so funny. I feel like... And it's funny that you bring that up, because I was reading a book, like Daily Rituals or whatever, and it kind of like lists all the different kind of like routines that artists... That book is so awesome, and I remember clearly one of the writers would start their day by rereading what they wrote the day before, and then I started doing that, and it actually helped write so much. Yeah. Like, because when you reread the stuff that you were just doing, it kind of like jumpstarts all of these like ideas and stuff, and I was like, man,
that book's where I learned about Anthony Trollope. He's like this dude. He had a full-time job and still wrote like hundreds of novels. And his whole thing was like, yeah, I just write faster. And it's like, this man is a genius. This is the smartest man who's ever lived.
That is so crazy. That is so amazing. I think there's a moment in your life you have to realize, like, or I mean, I'm just talking for myself. I have to realize I'm not a genius, and that's okay. No.
It's so nice to realize. Here's the thing: you don't have to be the best. You should always strive to be the best. Mm-hmm. But being the best is basically unachievable. But if you're better than the worst 25% of people, you're in. You're solid. Like, the lower 25% of people doing the thing you want to do, if you like compete against them and you get above that's achievable. Like, I feel like anyone can like put in that sweat and do that. And then you worry about being the best. I'm still trying to get above the bottom 40%.
I mean, there's a lot of people that just don't even do the thing. Like, they talk about doing it. They're like, I bet I could do this. And then they never actually do the thing. I think just following through and doing the thing sets you off into a pretty good start.
I still can't believe you drew. Your way of learning comics and drawing was like, I'm just going to draw 2,000 pages of comics. I'm like, that is pretty awesome. Like, that's commitment and discipline. How would you say, how did you commit to that? Like, what was your little recipe for, like,
because you said you didn't have discipline. so where did you find the discipline for this?
Well, here's the thing is, I always have the discipline to do something. The thing I'm doing, I have very little control over, unless, like, someone else, like, when I do animation, I'm, like, locked in. But it's because other people have a financial stake and, like, timelines that, like, that stuff has to go to South Korea. That's where a lot of cartoons are animated, right?
Yeah.
Someone was telling me on the production that I had to go to South Korea at a certain date. And I was like, okay, I guess I have to do it.
Also, you're like very deadline focused.
Well, if other people give you if other people give you a deadline, that helps. Is that sort of?
It depends. It also depends on like how, for animation and for like corporate stuff. For some reason, I'm always on. Everything else, it like depends on. I'm trying to think of like a nice way to say it, but just how much I'm mentally acting up. But I'm never just watching TV. Mm-hmm. Like, if I'm not doing something, it's because I'm doing something else that somebody else is waiting for me to finish.
That's so funny. Wait, yeah, because you do a ton of stuff. You're super creative. You not only do you do animation and comics, but you also do music. How did you stumble into like doing music? Is it also just a thing you're like, I want to do it, pick it up?
Yeah, I did music first. I kind of stopped playing music when I started doing comics. I was like, I'm out. This sucks. Touring is ass.
It's hard.
these people are all nutty. And comics had like a huge appeal to me at that time because like when you're in a band, you're dealing with a group of people's egos, and then you're being forced into a small van that keeps breaking with them for weeks at a time. And so when I started doing comics, it's like I get to be alone, and anything that's wrong is my fault, and I don't have to, like, it was nice.
And I don't have to split our cover or our fee at the end of the night with 3 other people. I can get paid badly just alone.
That's why Scott died. That's what killed Scott.
There's
really?
too many
Is the money
band
splitting
members.
money?
Well, when you play, you get a cut of the door, and then the smaller your band is, the more money you make.
Scott's too many. There's too many people in the band.
Yeah, because they have trumpets and trombones. And it's like Slipknot up there.
My current band doesn't have a bass player, and it sounds great. I like run into a bass amp. We're just,
is it a
very
2-piece?
loud. It's a 3-piece. But we'll constantly have a discussion about getting a bass player, or, you know, it's like we're free. We can do something weird. And the conversation always gets into, like, number one, that's somebody else's emotions to manage.
Yeah.
And also, in the very minimal chance we sell anything, that's like another person you have to cut in, and just like the viability. It's just like another person you have to feed when you tour. And like,
it's another writing style to worry about too.
Yeah, and it's just like there's just more places for it to go wrong. So I think we're just gonna be a 3-piece forever. And it's also like things go pretty well for us, and it's at the point where it's like, okay, if things get slightly better, we actually make some money where it's like viable to do it more.
Yeah.
And it's like you add another person, and that margin in where that things are slightly better has to be in a much different place.
That makes sense.
Because you have to make 25% more money.
How much of your art or animation has kind of crossed over with the music thing? Have you ever done music for a cartoon? Have you ever do you do like flyers? Do you do band art? Like
I've started doing a lot of art for a lot of bands. I've actually started doing a lot. To me, when I make an album with my band, I actually do the album art first before I even start writing.
Whoa, that's new.
And I kind of write to the image as like a mood board.
That's cool.
And it's just like, to me, it's all like music and comics. And everything is the same thing to me. It's just sequences and shapes and time frames. Like music is like all in sets of like repetitions. Like most music is just in sets of 4 or 8 over and over and over. And even my graphic novels, everything ends in a joke in every single page. Locations are always in multiples of 2. Like the way I write and draw comics is, and I also like, if you look at my comic Everything Sucks, it has a 9-panel grid. And it's the patterns and the spacing are such I think more important than the actual drawing in terms of like reader satisfaction.
Yes. 100%.
And
I
enjoyment.
100% agree. When you see the success of stuff like One Punch Man and Mob Psycho, is like, there you go. It's like the drawings don't have to be. I mean, they have to be like some sort of appealing, like on some kind of level. But like, it's all about rhythm. I agree. And pacing.
But like, I think even in animation, like the thing that feels good about so much animation isn't just the written joke, it's the like pause, it's the and you know, people go overboard. I think people intuitively know that, and that's why the silent reaction to the thing for the pause is so overplayed.
Yeah.
And it's just because we intuitively understand that's a way to manipulate time. And it's especially when you're in the storyboarding stage. I don't know anything about animation. I'm talking out of my butt.
You know some. You know enough. You can speak on it.
I've been boarding, but I feel like that's why that's so prevalent, is because I think intuitively it's one of the most concrete ways you can manipulate that sort of space and time in that phase without having to like write doesn't say something for 2 seconds in between this moment. Like you intuitively just do a reaction draw.
Yeah. I mean, it also might come from comics even. Like, just like, I feel like that was such a common thing in comics too. I think it's super interesting hearing you talk about how writing music relates to how you approach a visual thing? Is that how you connected, how you wanted to write at least like longer form comics? Like, have you made that connection before and did that on purpose, or is it something that you realized later?
So the reason my long form comics are written like that is because I started by drawing strips, and then to do longer stuff, I just did strips longer. And just the rhythm that drawing strips kind of ingrained in my comics making just ended up how I did longer comics. But I think I didn't do it on purpose, but I do think it makes the reading experience so much more pleasant. That like,
I agree.
That like hit, set, hit. But like, even with like music, like when you listen to a chorus, the witty turn, like, you know, you set up a scenario and the last line of the chorus should be something that turns it on its head in like a witty way that makes your point. And that's like the same thing as the way a comic is arranged.
And I think what you're saying is like so true also because in writing, especially for like primetime sitcoms, that's kind of usually how it is. You gotta have a joke at least every 3 lines. And so that is like a little bit, I see how you're kind of bringing together music writing and script writing in the sense that there is, you got to keep kind of like the song going, but there is like a rhythm to it that you got to keep at the same pace so that it feels good. And
but like when you look at like pop music choruses, they are almost always 4 sentences that are 4 distinct ideas that build on each other. And it's like, that's the same as like joke writing and, you know, story structure. I've had an argument for a long time that the 3-act structure isn't real. It's actually a 4-act structure.
Oh, that's interesting. Like, what's your idea behind that?
In the center of the second act, there's almost always a false success or a false like failure.
Yes.
Where things turn from the part like the beginning of the third act, you're having fun, you're playing with set pieces. And then something happens where things are now serious.
Yep.
And that is not the same thing as the first part of that act. And that actually confused me for a long time because I didn't intuitively pick up on that. And my stories would, the second act is almost twice as long as the first and fourth act. But I would be writing these stories because I would like read about the 3-act structure. And the second act would end up the same length as the first and third. Mostly because I'm not super observant. If I would have just looked at a story instead of looking at a thing on the 3-act structure, I could have just looked at stories and been like, this is how stories work.
Honestly, dude, I relate to this so much. I feel like I read so many books about writing stories and then I realized like I just don't watch enough or like read enough scripts. And then when you start reading, especially reading the scripts, and that's what they say in a lot of like writing classes, like when you once you read a bunch of scripts and you take the time to analyze the structure of it, dude, your writing is just like, gets so much better.
And it's all the same shape. Like the last book I turned in that I was just talking about, I spent like 6 months writing it, and in the last month of the process, the entire plot became about zombies or like undead, and there was not a mention of the undead or zombies in the entire book, and I added it as I was writing the 4th act. And I think I freaked my editor out, but then I just went back and did it, and I just changed things to make it, and it's because what I'm focusing on is the shape of the story and making that pleasant. And then, like, if something's about Dracula is a costume. Like, to me, like, I make the shape of the thing and where they are and how they're communicating and like the friction and how those frictions play back. And then I just went back in and I was like, this friction's now about the situation. I just rewrote the dialogue to fit the situation.
You can go back and then draw little fangs on the guy and make Dracula at the beginning if you need to. Yeah, and
it's, to me, making that the rhythms and the tensions and like, oh, I can actually hold this out longer, this like tension between these two characters, and working on how long that tension is possible and feels natural and right, and then like turning it. And it's like the shape of that experience, you could just put any costume on. It doesn't matter. Like the aesthetics are just a costume. I feel like I'm in a college dorm smoking weed right now. But I legitimately believe these things, and to my editor's dismay.
I agree, and it's interesting that you're bringing that up because it also shows process. I was just talking with a friend of mine about like process and writing process, and she's very structure driven, so she tends to like break the structure of the story like completely before diving in. And it sounds like you're more almost like a straight ahead kind of person, where you're like, I just like to do like a big go ahead and write the whole story, and then I go back and then I make sense of it.
Yeah, kinda. But like the thing is, like the story was originally like the fourth act works the same. Mm-hmm. Because the fourth act was like structurally there was a large monster chasing them through like a city. Mm-hmm. And I just changed the monster to a zombie. And
so that's very small lift.
I think it was originally a dinosaur. It was originally a dinosaur. I don't even remember this book that I just wrote that I'm editing right now. But yeah, to me, it's just like, oh, it'd be so cool to have like a big thing smashing a city right here. And what the big thing is kind of inconsequential in my process. Because when I write the other way, I feel like I end up trying to make points and statements.
Yes.
And like if I say like this is the theme of the work, I like start getting very didactic, and I feel like that's very unpleasant to read.
I agree. Oh dude, I could talk about this for a very long time, but I very much agree. And I think we're a little bit stuck in a lot of the content that's out is like that's the number one flaw that I see also. Is like it's very didactic, and then it's not as fun to watch it because you feel like you're like at a lecture and you're not really watching.
Well, we have to learn a lesson. We have to there has to be like some sort of theme behind a larger theme, an artsy theme that we're addressing, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's like, and that's why I liked South Park. I mean, I don't really watch South Park anymore, but I liked that they were making fun of that. Like at the end, it's like, and today we've all learned that blah blah blah, and then obviously, they make
It's also the way I feel is there are like I feel like people have the like rant of like it's too didactic, and then people who feel like that are like it's because it's political, and it's like that's not it. It's a structure problem. If a person has deep thoughts that are political in nature, it will come out no matter how you write the story.
Yes.
But if you start by saying, I'm going to tell this message, I feel like that can kind of trip people up. Or it trips me up when I try to do that. And I feel like people get confused with like the flaw in the work being didactic. Because I think if you want the material, just hire somebody who cares deeply about the stuff. And it's going to be that you can't not put it in the work.
I think it's because the way that I personally see it, or that I've seen it in my experience play out in rooms, is that, and it's exactly what you described, it's like, it's because of the structure, and people are like, well, what are we trying to say? And this is the thing, and we're trying to say this, instead of stumbling upon the thing that you end up saying. Because if you write good drama, you end up naturally stumbling onto like, and it doesn't have to be super deep. Sometimes it can just be as simple as like
you should share
a saying or whatever.
Well, I mean, this thing is like I do kids books and I do adult books, and it doesn't matter what. And I'm like working on a sci-fi book now too. All of my books are about a group of people and how to survive with other people who are not being good people to you, who you are not being good people to. That is the theme of my work.
Oh my gosh. Is that like related to your band experience?
It might be. But here's the thing is somebody had to point that out to me. I had no idea.
That's kind of cool when somebody like points that out for you. Anyway, sorry, I'm cutting you off.
Oh no, but as soon as they pointed it out to me, I had a real rough time writing for a while. Because I started trying to write that. And it's like, no, this is just the core of my life is I grew up with like people who weren't the best people, and I was not kind to people, and just trying to figure out, just like ruminating on that, and also just like just like thinking about it. But I'm trying to think of how to even say it, because that's the thing is I don't think about these things because I think for me as an artist it's very dangerous. But I mean that is like a lot of my close friends when I was very young were I very luckily like never did drugs, but like everyone I knew was very into that. And, like I think about some of my friends and it's like, oh, they had like drug problems. I thought they just like liked stealing my Xbox. And it's just like, that is where my work is coming from. But I think if I tried to do work about that, it would be awful for me. But I mean, everything I say and think, I'm only thinking about, I sit in a room by myself making the stories.
Is it a better rule of thumb for you to write the story and let the themes fall in place the way your subconscious wants it to, rather than your active brain telling you like these are the things that need to fall into place and happen because I'm trying to make it a story feels like this or be about these themes? Like, is it just sort of like the subconscious stories that you end up wanting to write? Like,
the second I start thinking about a theme, the story's fucked. Like, like it's gone.
How do you pitch a book or like start writing your book? Like, what's the little nugget of idea that gets you excited and that gets you to start writing?
I mean, I'm just constantly, the way I see my career in hindsight is I'm just playing with toys. Like, I'm an adult who knows that if I bought a toy, I would never get kissed again. And I just like, this is how I'm doing this in a way where I don't feel self-conscious about it. And maybe I should feel self-conscious about drawing comics. I don't know. Nobody has made fun of me about it, and that feels better.
I also, just a disclaimer for people out there, you can get kissed and have a toy. And
I know you can.
I just want to, just for any like toy havers, for any toy havers and non-kissers out there, I just want to let you know that there is a future for you.
One of my big things I want to do is I want to make toys. Like, I want to do it so bad. But it's just like, I'm also... That was a joke.
No.
I know. I'm just clarifying. I feel like as soon as I start talking, I forget that everyone listening to me doesn't hear me speak for 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, I'm playing with toys. I'm just like, what's cool?
I think that the most interesting part about hearing how you think about these things is in some ways it's fundamentally opposed to how we talk about pitching a script, like pitching a show. Because when you pitch a show, you have to distill it down to what is it about? What are the things you're trying to say? Like if you're pitching a show about like a bunch of recovering addicts in a facility, the first question you're going to get is, what's the point of view that you're coming from? Are you someone who's judging these people? Are you an ex-addict? Is this a recovery story? Are you talking from the point of view of the therapist or the person who is struggling with addiction? Is this about curing them? Is this about living with your vices? Like, what is this about? And it, in some ways, it's like the world that I live in the most is trying to distill those things down and think about it like almost before it's even written. Like, yeah.
I think what's also funny that, like, just so, like, a quick little tangent, but, like, it's that, like, even though we do that work to pitch, and it's a pitch, it's just a pitching tool. It's not, you don't actually have to do the show that you pitch.
Yes, true, yes.
No book I've ever pitched has been the thing that the people bought saw. Much to many people's dismay. But also, I backwards engineer that information at the end of the process a lot of the time.
Sure.
And also, it's interesting that you say that because a lot of the conversations I have with people who are like in charge of buying my work is people don't bring stuff like this to us anymore.
Oh, interesting. What do you know? What it is that is like the anymore part? Like what?
I don't know. Well, I think people in comics talk about how like, oh, publishers aren't making this kind of work anymore, and I don't think that's all on the publishers. I think people are trying to game what they think publishers want in the same way where it's like starting backwards, because I get people excited when they don't always buy it, but they're like, yeah, this is like very different than what we see. This feels like something somebody would have brought me in like 98.
That's so funny. I'm so curious now. I wonder if it's that people are trying to game the system like you're saying. They're trying to figure out what the editors want. Or I wonder if it's just a generational thing. Because I do feel like I have personally noticed, and because I used to think that way. I used to think I need to have a good theme about with good characters who are aspirational and good and very nice. And then eventually I realized people don't like these characters. People like gravitate towards my characters.
They want messed up characters.
They want the messed up characters. They want the little shits. They want the characters that are insane. Yeah.
I do think people do like some of those characters, but I think if you're going to do that, you just have to be a nice person. Like, I've read books that were very nice and very sweet, and I'm like, this does not feel like something I would like, because I generally read, like, much more like, I like people who are mean to each other. But I'll read something nice, and then I'll meet the artist. I'm like, oh, you're just like the nicest human who's ever lived.
Yeah, this is an honest story for you, but it wouldn't be for if I wrote it. Yeah, that.
You actually started therapy when you realized you needed to at 19. You didn't wait till you were 35. Like,
attention, I read an article that starting therapy as a teen might not be the best idea, that it can mess you up more. So that's just a tangent.
I'm currently in therapy, but it's very fun for me to argue with the people in my life that therapy makes you worse, even though I don't believe it. Therapy has been great for me.
Therapy's great. It saved me, I think, also.
Do you feel like, speaking of therapy, do you feel like any of the writing the stories that you're telling, do you feel like that has helped you work anything out?
Nope. I think it made it worse for a long time.
Really? That's so funny. That's so interesting. I feel like that's been the opposite for me.
What does your therapist think about that?
Yeah.
I haven't asked. But no, it's just like, I think you can do a thing where, for me, I have a real problem with rumination. This is a thing that I've gone over with my therapist. And, like, I'm not mad at anybody, but, like, I do get very frustrated with my past and how I feel like people have, like, wronged me in some way, or, you know, embarrassment of how I may have wronged someone else. Mm-hmm. And going over it for me was a big part of why I think my life was so frustrating for so long. Like, because I would just compulsively go back to, damn, why did I date that girl for 2 years in 2007?
I should forget about this, but I'm going to make a comic about it. So you've turned your ruminations into comic form, and now you're just ruminating in a different way.
I wasn't doing it on purpose, but I mean, it's kind of the thing is like, but also dealing with that, with my process of making work, like, I'm currently working on a book that we're trying to pitch that's like a sci-fi thing, and it's just all about, it'd be real cool to draw somebody shooting a bunch of people. Instead of, it'd be really cool to draw a bunch of people who are very mean to each other, but it's like, just trying to get away from it.
That's just mean to each other with guns.
Yeah, but they're like real good friends this time.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm getting ready to start the next Everything Sucks collection, and it's kind of an interesting. I'm just going to do it and not think about it in the book. But if my mental health declines, maybe that was a bad idea.
We'll test it out.
Yeah, but I mean, I would like to do the Everything Sucks books till I die. Like, this is the only thing that I'm like, I just want to do this. Mm-hmm. We'll see how it goes for me. I did have an ending originally for it that I recently was like, after I'd gone to therapy, I was like, that's a messed up ending. That's not how this is going to end anymore.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Like, it was a very much punishing the reader. I don't really want to explain it because it's like explaining the trick makes it bad. But it's like I had a very different thought on what I was doing. And I've become so much more empathetic towards the characters since starting the project a couple years ago, where it's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that to these guys anymore. That's not going to happen.
Oh, you love them now. Before you were...
Are you learning how to love yourself now, and they're parts of yourself?
I think that might be it. But I'm, once again, not going to think about it too hard, because I feel like you can really damage the work by overthinking it and knowing what it is.
Do you... Okay, I wonder... Because my experience doing comics previous to going to therapy and then making comics still, my experience has been that I was just like, oh yeah, that's like unprocessed like trauma or whatever that I was just writing subconsciously. And I think I was like very worried about writing the same story over and over and over and over again, just with different characters. You know what I mean? I don't know if you feel like you can, like the world has opened up a little bit in terms of like the themes that you can like tackle a little bit naturally.
Maybe, but I mean, the thing is, every Quentin Tarantino movie is the same movie.
That's
he's
true.
never written a different movie, and I don't know why he came to mind. I'm not like a huge Quentin Tarantino. He's made one movie that I like. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's a fantastic film. Don't love the other movies. Love that one. One of my favorite endings of any movie. But can't talk about it because that spoils what the ending is. But like I don't know. I'm never worried about repeating a theme. If my readers say, "Bro, you were repeating yourself. This is driving me crazy," I'd probably think about it.
Yeah.
But every story is the same story. Like, it's all the same thing. It's just the lens, the who you are that thing is processing through is different. And I don't know that I have any control over that, really. Or I don't know that trying to exert any control over that is a particularly good idea for me. It's hard to mess with something that feels like it's kind of working.
Yeah, for sure.
No, it's so funny. That's really interesting.
I'm having such a good time. Why would I play with the formula?
Yeah.
Like, I'm having a good time. It feels like the readers are having a good time. I don't want to think about it too much.
I love that.
Also, nothing I've said is anything I ever think to myself while I'm working. I'm just like, man, it'd be real cool to draw a bunch of money in this book. And then I backwards engineer a way to draw a bunch of money.
I think that's the right way to do it. You like kind of follow the fun. Yeah.
Well, I think that's the hook. If I can find a way to not lose track of the original reason why I wanted to make the thing, because it's not just about entertaining the readers. It's about like, what's the thing that you have fun making, and you just hope that lines up with what the readers want. So if your story like fuck like some, the like solving a bunch of stuff through therapy, through themes, like is the thing that you want to write about some sort of like sword fight. I feel like it can be as simple as that, and if that's what you are having fun doing and that's what you want to explore, then do that.
I just don't think art can save me in any way. That's why I'm also going to therapy. Like I've tried to process things through art, and it's just like, this seems highly inefficient, and also I don't have any expertise on solving mental problems. I'm not a professional. I just gotta focusing on making it cool and making sure, like, for me, a big thing is making sure the readers are engaged, because it's like a conversation. And if I feel that I'm losing that conversation, like, there's one thing about like making the art you want to make, but I want to talk to people. And like, we've all met the person who wants to talk about the thing they want to talk about, which might be me on this podcast. I'll re-listen to it and I'll probably be like, oh, what the hell? But like, in the conversation, like, you'll be at like an event and somebody just wants to talk about this one thing in this one way and nobody's vibing. It's like, that's not a good way for me to make art.
Sure.
Because like, I make art all the time that nobody sees. That's different. I want to show people. I want to like communicate.
What's your favorite thing to make that you don't want other people to see?
I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with anyone seeing it. It's just, I don't think there's any value in it. Like, I have like these, like, every year I'll go buy a case of, like, this is the second time I'm doing it, when the back to school sale happens and like spiral ring notebooks are on sale for like 15 cents each. I'll just buy a case and I just like fill them up, and it's just like, it's just noise. I wouldn't care if anyone saw it. It's just, there's no value in it in that like unfiltered way.
Gotcha. If
somebody wanted to pay me to look at them, they're welcome to do it.
I think it's so funny that you said you weren't really drawing before you were 21, and now you're just like, you sound like you draw a lot, like a ton. Like, just buying the huge, like, amount of books and just filling them up?
It depends. Like, I'm always doing something. Like, I'm not drawing right now in this thing, just because it's like, my hand is not doing it. Like, I have to, like, ramp up the drawing. I've been recording guitars for, like, the last week and editing a story, and it's just like I'm not drawing. But when I am drawing, it's constant. And luckily, I feel like I've finally gotten pretty good at drawing. I feel like I'm pretty good. I feel like I'm almost great at a couple elements of drawing. But I don't feel like I'm good enough that I have to do it every single day to maintain it. Like, I'm definitely not at a virtuoso level. And, like, I feel like those people probably have to draw all the time.
I think a lot of virtuoso people also specialize in a few small things. Like,
yeah.
I think that what you do is a lot of, like, well-rounded, like, you're hitting a lot of different areas. You're hitting writing, you're hitting staging, you're hitting drawing your characters, but also in a specific style. There's backgrounds, there's characters, there's color, coloring when you do that. Like, I think that there are some people, I'm sure someone's going to tell me I'm wrong and say that there's some virtuoso comic people, but a lot of the virtuoso people that I know are like, they paint backgrounds every single day, and it's just, and they paint backgrounds, or they draw the most amazing characters. But I don't know.
It depends also kind of like how you define virtuoso, I guess. Because I feel like for me, like, it makes me think of people like Takehiko Inoue, the guy who did like Slam Dunk. For me, like that guy, I'm like, all right, you're on a different plane of existence.
I do think it is largely true, though, in, like, I feel like in manga, he might have, like, editors and assistants helping him hit that. Maybe, I mean, he could just be, I don't know, his career. But, like, Mobius is, like, a virtuoso artist.
Oh, that makes sense.
His books are unreadable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is almost
That's a good example. Yeah.
That are, it's, like, almost illegible. And some people will probably be like, that's not true. But it's like, that's pretty true. I've seen those books.
Yeah, he's 100% just an artist.
And, like, I think it's great. But yeah, I don't think I'll ever reach that skill level in anything just because I want to do too many things. Like, I spent all day today trying to get a specific guitar tone. Like, that's not the behavior of somebody who's also going to become, like, a genius illustrator. Just, there's no way to... I think you got to do it all in the thing to do that. I think you're right.
But that's the benefit of having a team. That's why I think animation is so interesting, because it's like some Captain Planet shit where you're like, I'm good, like backgrounds, characters, like, and they're holding up their rings and they come together.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, in the animation stuff I've done, I've loved that workflow where it's like I'm locked in. The last thing I got, it would have been easier if they would have given me a script or storyboards, but they literally gave me no context and they were like, just do backgrounds.
That's crazy. That's so funny.
It would have been easier to just do backgrounds if I had that stuff, but it's like being able to do a job where it's like I'm only doing this, and it was like really exciting for me because it's like usually it's like my comics have a lot of pretty more intense backgrounds than they should, but there is a realization of when I choose to do this, that means other parts aren't going to have those backgrounds, or I'm going to punish myself. Well, a lot of my comics, it always comes down to I hate the decisions I've made to deliver the level of backgrounds. But like with this, it was just backgrounds. It was like I got locked in. It's the first project I've learned to use the perspective ruler. That was
fun.
I didn't know the perspective ruler existed until this project. And I have probably, not knowing that, has probably lost me a cumulative like 400 hours of my life at this point. Very frustrating. But I did just talk to somebody the other day who had been drawing comics the whole time and had no idea photo merge existed for combining multiple scans. They had been manually positioning scans on bigger illustrations together. And then somebody else was like, wait, what's photo merge? And I was like, oh no. And these are both guys who like do big illustrations. So maybe me not knowing perspective ruler is not that big of a deal.
I feel like it's so hard to keep learning the tools because there's a moment you get in the flow and all your little shortcuts and all of your little ways of doing the things.
It's hard to break out of that.
Yeah, and it's hard to break out of that 100%. When there's like an update on Storyboard Pro or whatever, sometimes I'm like, I don't want the update because I'm fine where I'm at.
It's also a balance because like I will like post. I'm very big on Discord right now. I'm like totally off social media. Somebody told me that y'all shared a story and they're like, oh, you're on that. And I was like, oh, I gotta log in real quick to post like a story thing. But like, so I've been like on Discord because I just think it deals with my brain better. Mm-hmm. But like, I'll make a post and somebody will know everything on how to use a program. And I'll like, oh, that's cool. And I'll click through and it's like, they don't even draw comics. Like, they've learned this program inside out and have produced like 12 pages. And it's like, very beneficial for me. Very grateful. But I feel like that balance is like, oh, you're like, the focus is being,
like they're putting all the focus into the program, but they're not like doing the drawings that make use of that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's like the thing of like everybody knows somebody who's been writing and rewriting a story for like 5 years, and it's like you can't actually edit this because you don't know what it is you're editing. It's like they've been being like, I'm going to be a great basketball player. And they've been planning their attack on being a basketball player and reading books on basketball for 4 years. Mm. And there's no court time. And it's like, this is the guy who read no books, who just goes to the court every single day, is a better basketball player. Now, the guy 80% of the time is going to the courts. And then in the time off his reading is probably better than that one guy. But like, you got to play the game.
Yeah, I saw something. There was an artist that gave a good piece of advice that I saw recently, is a YouTube/Twitch person named Kasem, who was saying that like people get so obsessed with like, you could just watch tutorials all day, but did you like study to learn how to draw, or did you draw to learn how to study, sort of?
Yeah.
And some people just get stuck in this loop where they like they're studying all the time, but like how many they do one drawing a week, and they're like, oh, I must need to study more,
I like this show, Creative Block specifically, because it can be on while I'm working. I've started a YouTube channel 3 or 4 times, gotten relatively good views, and I always delete it because the way what I'm doing works, I feel like I'm contributing to the kind of, there's like a whole social media learning economy that I think the way I've like observed people learning through it, I think is actually bad.
Oh, interesting.
Like, I think you're developing in this environment where you're making people think engaging with what you're giving them is helpful, and they're kind of just, it's another way of consuming content and feeling like you're being productive. And it, like, I just, every time I get in the headspace, I just immediately delete my channel. Like, I had a video with like 20,000 views, and I just deleted it because it was like, this, how do you be part of, that economy? And then there's also the thing of like, a lot of the people who kind of win and rule in that space, like, even though I watch a lot of this kind of content, there's a lot of people whose content I like. It's like, I will watch their stuff and I'm like, this is great. And then 2 years later, I'll look at what they're doing and I'm like, this person should not be giving advice. This is horrifying.
No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean, though, because I feel like there's also a certain, like, one of the more toxic things I think that people, I don't know whether it's an accident they do it or on purpose or whatever, is like there's a lot of videos online that give you like the quick hack to make the perfect face, like anime style or something, and you draw like this line up to this line to line up the nose, and it's like that'll work for that one pose ever. Like, I don't know.
My first 600 pages, all the same face drawings.
There's like so much drama. Okay, so y'all, first of all, I didn't know that there was like an art community on YouTube, and it was its own very specific community. It's different from the TikTok art community, and it's different from the and there was like big drama because this artist was doing these tutorials just like the one that you were describing, Sean, where it's like, in order to get like the shine in the eye in that specific way, you use this brush at this size and in this color and blah blah blah. So it's like step by step. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, like in the stores back in the day, they would sell, I think they still sell them, like these like paintings that you could do, and it's all like a lot of like little shapes, and there's
it's
numbers
like
in them, and you have to color. Yeah, paint by numbers. It's literally like, that's the new version of like paint by numbers, pretty much. And then everybody started drawing that way because it was a very appealing style. And then the original artists who started doing all the tutorials got mad because
like,
people
why are
were
you drawing like my stuff? But the thing is like you're not teaching people a technique of how to draw. You're teaching people one technique of how to draw in your particular style, that one particular thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so funny to me. It's funny because it's like, why wouldn't you see that this would happen? But
also, that's a good thing. Like,
yes.
That's like, I have seen cartoonists who I know for a fact are aping my stuff. Like, people will send it to me and they'll be like, this guy draws exactly like you. And it's like, yeah, this. But the thing is, that's great. Yeah. I draw almost is like, if I told you the 3 or 4 artists I care about, I draw exactly like them. Like, one of them is Louis Trondheim.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I will just blatantly swipe the way he draws stuff constantly.
I think you have a very different style, but I see the inspiration.
But it's like, for me, when I see people swiping from me in that way, I'm excited. Like, because that's part of what we're trying to do is, like, communicate and connect with people. Otherwise, why would you put it online?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
And, like, nobody is actually an individual. Like, that's like, you know, you are an individual, but, like, the things that you're doing are just you processing and repeating things you've seen. You know, the way to be interesting is to process and repeat things from different disciplines and areas and, like, combine things. But it's like, like, when somebody's like, this person's ripping you off, I'm like, oh, hell yeah, this rocks. And, like, I immediately follow those people.
I think there's sometimes an insecurity there that I see. People are insecure and they feel like realistically, there are so many people in the world. This one other person drawing somewhat like you, like, if you're worried about them stealing your business, you might have to rethink your business model. Like, if you can be that easily replaced, then
also,
maybe,
I got terrible news about what computers are about to be able to do.
Yeah.
We did not bring that up. We should kill it.
I mean, yeah, but I guess, yeah, no, you're right. Let's just not go there just because it's like such a trigger topic. But I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts about it. I guess, yeah, no, I think it's interesting that you bring that up, and I do think that's something that took me way more time to realize than it should have. Or maybe that's something that you can only realize when you're, like, in your 30s, because I feel like I realized that in my 30s, where I was like, wow, the value about me as an artist is like the specific blend of stuff that I like is only me. Like, I'm the only person who has that specific combination of things that I like. Other people will also like some of the things that I like, but not in the same combination. And that's what makes the artist, I think, special.
No one's going to write like you and draw like you. And like yes. You do many different things. And I think that is actually a good way of protecting yourself from those sort of things, is like, get a few different things that you throw in the mix. What are what are your, like, 3 main ingredients? Like for Michael, it might be like, you also happen to make music, so you have, like, stories about music and different kind of, like, subcultures that you bring in that other people might not. Or, like, band art or graffiti, like maybe your graffiti background that you got in trouble for. Like, on our first page here, you filled it with what looked like tags, and I immediately recognized, I was like, you have a graffiti background, I can tell.
That's like 90% of those sketchbooks is just me writing random words over and over and over.
Okay, this is something that I am so impressed by, because I have a couple of artist friends who also, I don't know if they come from graffiti or if they're just, like, interested in it, but they also do that, and I'm like, I'm like so in awe, because I'm like, I just get bored. I can't do the same thing so many times. Like, what, tell us a little bit, like, what's the process for you when you write, like, the same word in, like, different ways? Like, are you trying to tweak it? Like, how can you not get bored of writing the same word?
Because it for me, it's all the same thing. But, like, if with graffiti, the big thing is it's rhythms. Not to go back to the same dorm room conversation, but it's all rhythms and repetition, and then breaking those rhythms. Like, if you, on that first page, if you look at the way I do the bottom of the C, the E's, and, like, shapes like that, it's the same shape. And what makes the letters different is where the rhythms are different. And then those rhythms also cross with different letters that are, you know, have a similarity, but they don't have the similarity with the other thing that has it with. And to me, like, typography and lettering is the most pure way of me engaging with what I think is the core of all art. It's just rhythms and then divergences and, like, tensions, and, you know, like, every letter is, like, the same, the where the things go horizontally through a vertical line are on the same spot, but then in one spot you do it very different.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, it's that tension and release, it's those patterns. And for me, it's just the one place where I feel like I actually can see those things clearly, and they're not subconsciously there.
Do you feel like practicing that stuff, A, has influenced how you write out dialogue or sound effects in your comics, and B, do you feel like when you draw cityscapes you need to graffiti the little walls of the buildings or make him feel busy?
I draw so much stuff like that in the backgrounds. I was actually really happy to learn when I was doing background on shows, I would just pop that in there, like little stuff, and people were like, "Oh, this is cool," not, "Oh, the boards didn't have that on there."
Right.
Like, anytime I get to do lettering in the background of a comic, or an animation thing, I'm so ecstatic. Like, I did the background of a fantasy thing on Summer Camp Island, and I was just doing somebody had, like, gone through the city and written stuff on the walls.
Oh, that's awesome.
And, like, lettering is, like, the one place I get, like, only enjoyment. There's, like, no stress. It's just purely engaging with that and, like, tweaking. And I can, you know, I don't feel like I might be a good artist. People have told me I have to stop saying I'm a bad artist because it's, like, insulting to other people. But in my mind, I don't feel in control of art because I can't really see what's happening.
Is that what your definition of a good artist would be, as somebody who's completely in control? I
mean, you can see in some people's art, like, their control over, like, that intention and being able, like, because, like, randomness isn't real, or it's real, but it's like, you know, you can't intentionally do randomness.
Are you sort of saying that, like, what they picture in their head, they're able to one-to-one translate onto the page, or do you mean something beyond that?
I think something different. I actually don't think the images we see in our head are. I think I gotta stop doing this dorm room stuff, but I don't think the image you see in your mind is real. Otherwise, like, because you ask anybody on the street, you're like, "Can you imagine something in your mind?" They're like, "Yes, I have a photographic image of a dog." You're like, "Draw the dog. Trace the image in your mind." And they can't. It's like the image in your mind is an illusion.
I think some people can do it, but I agree that
I
can't do it.
I would say that that's how I feel. Like, when I feel in control, it's because I can picture something and then draw it exactly. But it does. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time.
That's like that's knowledge.
But no. Like, I like picture a design and a pose and a color and a vibe in my head. I mean, I'm not going to say it's like the exact thing, but I would say, like, I started to feel like I had any control over artwork when I felt like I was able to do that. However, I think a lot of the stuff that we're doing right now, even on this, is like I'm drawing faster than my mind can picture anything, so it kind of throws that out. But if I'm like really thinking on a design or a joke, for instance, like, a lot of the times I will picture a very specific thing in my head and try to replicate that. But I don't know.
I think what I'm saying is I think the thing that you're doing in your mind now with skill is very different than the image. Like, it's sort of a comfort in, but I don't think we can even really know because it's all conjecture. There's no way to do it.
There's also a lot of people that are unable to picture any image in their mind.
I learned about this recently.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really interesting that you guys bring that up, because I feel like, for me as a kid, that's what I thought being a great artist was. Because I could have pictures in my mind that were like magnificent, beautiful, great lighting, all that stuff, and I would get really frustrated because I couldn't draw them. And now that I've let go of pursuing that goal, that I just have like a more hazy idea. I'm like, I want to go towards that feeling, or I want to do something a bit like that.
then I feel like a much better artist because I'm not trying to attain a target that is impossible. It's fun to talk about these things, though. I think, like, you know, like, because I do feel like everybody's got like a different definition of what a great artist is or should be, and I think sometimes that can also help in like one's career, you know, or even one's like self-evaluation of skill to kind of reassess these parameters that are often very arbitrary, you know?
I feel like I have an issue with speaking with way too much confidence. Everything I said I will feel very differently about in 6 months.
No, I think that it's valid though. And the thing is I think that there's multiple ways of thinking about things, and also the thing that I'm talking about where you picture something and try to draw it, I think that there are drawbacks to that. It also means when I rely on that too much, I can stare at a blank page for a half an hour and not put anything down because I can't think of anything, versus I think a lot of the way that I've seen you draw so far is that you just, things are coming out of you and flowing, and it might be because you're not even thinking about what they are, what they need to be. You're not trying to live up to the expectations of what's in your mind. So that's some drawbacks that I've seen with how I draw. Sometimes if I put too much emphasis on that, I get stuck.
Yeah, for me, I draw, and then it's like, what's next? And then what's next? And what's next? And eventually I'll see connections, and it just spins out into a whole thing, and then I just start cutting things that don't make sense with the whole. I don't really know how other people think about drawing. That's the kind of content that should be on YouTube, though, on, like, all of these, like, YouTube art channels. Like, that's, like, I feel like I watch so much of it, and it's just the same 5 things over and over.
Well, that's why we gotta make the stuff we want to see, right?
That's what we try to do. We try to talk shop and talk about philosophy on art and how we think about things, and because I think it's fun. I do feel like when you share that stuff. And for anybody listening, if you start kind of asking these kind of questions to your peers and how you think about drawing and how they think about drawing, I think it's so interesting because this is a story I've told on the podcast a couple of times already, but it's something that has stuck with me for like years, for actually a decade. Like one of my classmates, Jonathan Bencondo, extremely talented guy, and he would be drawing all the time. And one day I was like, aren't you tired of working all the time? And he said, what do you mean? I'm like, you're drawing right now. And he's like, this is not work. And I was like, oh, and like that, like, you know, and I was just like brain blast. But you know, like, I think interacting in that way, and that was kind of a roundabout way of saying like his definition of what work and drawing is, and it's very interesting. I think these are
I've also found that people that have worked really, really hard jobs end up appreciating this in a different way. Than like I have friends who like they spent years working construction and just like really back-breaking hard jobs, and then they're like thankful to be like, I can make money just like sitting in my seat and drawing like goofy stuff. And I think that sometimes you lose track. We can all lose track of that a little bit, you know, because work is work, but also and I think that work is work, reminding ourselves that also helps with like some workers' rights stuff and like union stuff. Like I understand the function of thinking like that, but also we're doing what we love, supposedly. Like I think a lot of us are, at least.
I feel like, however, though, and that's also like maybe, and that's also a question for you, Michael, is like, because you've done both comics and animation, and I'm sure like some freelance work here and there and stuff like that. Like do you ever get frustrated that you have to draw something that you don't really want to draw? Like you're like, I'd much rather be doing.
I basically won't do that, which is a big problem for me. You know, luckily when I do animation stuff, I'm very enamored with the process and the structure in a way that like is engaging to me. But I would say like 90% of freelance projects I should do, I don't do, because I know that
So you turn down a lot of stuff.
I turn down a lot of stuff that I should be doing, and it's very stupid. And then I'll say yes to doing free stuff for people that I don't have time to do. But it's just like, it's just what I want to do.
How do we get Michael Sweater to say yes to our project?
Yeah, what's the starter pack for like getting together a project that you would say yes to?
It's just got to be functionally something I want to do. Like if it's animation at this point, I'm doing anything that's offered. Because well, the thing is, I'm enamored with the structure. I like the group work aspect. You know, it's interesting to me. But it's like, I also like I'm not really stressed about doing anything. Like, one of my most common phrases, since you say the construction thing, in the house, my girlfriend will talk to me, and she'll be like, "Are you still drawing?" And I'll just say, "It ain't drywall." Mm-hmm. Like, you know, I worked at Subway before this. I worked at Wawa gas stations, and I did demolition and drywall. And I've never had another job besides those things. And so even when it sucks, it's like, it could be worse. Like,
What was the worst? Tell us your worst experience working at a Wawa station.
Wawa was great. I was at Wawa when I started drawing comics, and I was pumping gas. It was in New Jersey where you don't pump your own gas. And the whole day in between pumping gas, I would write potential strips on the back of receipt paper, and I would come home with my pockets full of receipt paper and just draw them. Like, I would pick the best ones, and none of them were good. I loved Wawa. The worst job was I worked at a Subway and a Walmart.
Oh, yeah?
And I'm convinced they play Celine Dion 15% louder than the rest of the music. I would just be standing there. The worst, like, I think Celine Dion is an icon. Amazing. But I swear, the beginning of Girls, that like a line in the beginning of Girls Just Want to Have Fun, so much louder in a Walmart than any of the other music.
That is so funny.
Like, I would like go to the bathroom, like, when they did it, just because the music was different in the bathroom for some reason.
Yo, shout out to Wawa though. I miss Wawa a lot. It's one of the big things I miss.
The iced teas were.
I mean, that's all I used to drink. That's all I used to do. I used to just get a half-gallon iced tea. Yeah. And that's what I would drink for the day. I mean, I'm sure that, you know, if I was still drinking those, I'd have kidney stones and or whatever problems. But like, I do miss that. All my friends worked at Wawa, and I would walk over there every single day and go just hang out with them while they worked and stuff.
You could get exclusive Wawa merch if you worked there that the general public couldn't buy.
Yeah.
Like, and
then local Goodwills, you could find Wawa merch there because
I would buy Wawa hoodies and resell them to people for more than I paid for them.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like, because everyone was like, "I want a Wawa hoodie," and you couldn't get them unless you like worked there and ordered them.
Wow, the second-hand market economy. Wawa.
I bet it's different now. This was like 2007.
I'm sure now they're like, okay, we gotta like get in on this. This is like money we're like leaving on the table. Have you ever made merch of your like characters or?
Yeah, I usually have a shirt website, which is currently offline just because I don't want to use the internet. And I had like an issue a couple months ago where like a bunch of orders didn't go through, and like I couldn't figure out how to track it down, and I was just like, this is untenable. I'm getting rid of this until I get somebody who knows what they're doing to look at this. But it was like a weird 2-week window where anyone who ordered shirts, but I just went through and like I just like paid to send everybody in that window a shirt. That I found, and like I'm assuming some people got too, and I don't know what the flaw was, and I could not figure out how to figure out who it sent to or didn't, so I took that down. But I love making merch. My band lives and dies on the fact that I like making shirts. Our shirts are better than our band.
Yeah, I feel like bands get roasted sometimes for being like merch core bands, but like that's where you make your money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, would you say for comics, what would you say, Michael? Because I feel like for me, I don't make any money making comics. I just make money selling the merch.
Almost all my comics money is books. I understand that's like highly fortunate. I could probably make way more money if I did it differently. I'm very, very lucky that royalties and advances cover my entire life, basically.
That's awesome.
But the band thing, we screen print our own shirts, and our unit cost is $250. So that's 90% of the money we make on band stuff. Like, when you look at the band finances, it's all shirts. Like, it eclipses, like, ticket sales. Because you got to think, with ticket sales, it's like, you know, you split it with bands. If we play within 2 hours and there's a band that is like on tour and drove 12 hours, we just hand them the money.
Yeah.
Like, and, you know, even in like a 500 cap room, like, if you sell out, if 500 people are there, once you divvy up the money between everybody, it's not actually that much money. And
sure.
But you sell a shirt to 100 people in the room, that's a lot of money. Yeah, it's just the realities of the economy. But I in comics, I've been very lucky that my advances and royalties have covered. If I had a kid or I had like actual expenses, things would be very different. But I basically spend no money because it's like you know, the cost of drawing a graphic novel on paper is under $100.
Yeah.
Like, what am I gonna spend money on? Like, anything cool I buy, use, or bootleg anyway.
Top 3 meals under $3.
Under $3.
Is that even possible?
I think it is. Listen,
it's possible.
In LA, maybe not.
No, Sean, listen, everybody, listen, and I wish we got a Trader Joe's sponsorship. Giant baked beans in tomato sauce canned, $2. Amazing. Yeah. That has been my lunch for.
I'm trying to think. Most of my meals are just bags of carrots.
Oh, bags.
Like baby
That's so
carrots.
Funny.
Like, I would say, like, over the last 6 months, 75% of my diet has been raw vegetables. And then my girlfriend will come home and be like, "What are you doing?" And then, like, we'll make actual food.
I had a face like that where I wasn't like, I don't know. Like, I had like a health nut phase where I was just kind of like, I will only eat like raw foods and just like, and I would eat like.
I just love raw vegetables. Like, I genuinely.
They're tasty.
Like, I will just grab a whole thing of raw broccoli. I don't know. Something clicked in my like brain like a year ago. But I mean, it's also like my only strong political position is fresh vegetables there should be like more, like everyone should get food stamps for fresh vegetables.
Yes.
I have a lot of political positions, but I'm not confident enough to say this will play out in a great way.
Sure.
Because those are more radical leftist politics that I don't actually know if it's going to work. But I think the long-term benefits of everybody getting food stamps for free vegetables, downstream effects, everybody, I think,
I think so.
Be happy.
I have a little soapbox moment to do. In France, because the healthcare is mostly paid by the government. Obviously, if you go to like private hospitals or whatever, you have to pay more, and it's not covered by the government entirely. But like if you go to healthcare, and so the government cannot afford to have people be sick because they have to pay for it. So we have PSAs like before and after every ad that is food. They have to say either one of these things, which is like, don't eat too much sugar, not too much oil, or not too much salt. Another one is like, you have to eat like 5 fruit or vegetables a day. Another one, you have to have like 20 minutes of exercise. There's like these things that like, and it's kind of like almost like a, you know, it's almost like a meme, not a meme, but like it's like a cultural relevant thing that people can like riff off and make fun of because it's like everywhere.
I think if you want me to do it, subsidize it. Pay me to go. Give me a free gym membership. Give me free vegetables. And like, my thing about the vegetables is like, I think you give somebody something for free. My diet has been horrible my entire life. And it still is bad because I'm only eating vegetables. But for most of my life, if you said, hey, here's $50 a week that you can spend on vegetables, I'm eating them.
Yeah.
Like, and whatever health problems I definitely have coming up don't make enough money that I'm paying for that myself yet. Hopefully. The government could have saved some money on that.
That was the health segment of Creative Block.
I just like vegetables. I'm just trying to justify why I'm eating so many fucking carrots. I don't actually know or care.
And here's my part of Creative Block where I talk about how good food tastes real good, and it's fun to eat as much of it as you can. It's just like I undo all the work that you guys did. Now here's my take.
That.
I'm honestly just arguing with my girlfriend right now via this podcast of you have to eat more than just vegetables, Michael. It's like, I'm actually doing a good thing. This is actually great.
That's so funny.
I also just don't want to cook is a big problem.
Yes.
So, but I did just get a new stove, so I would probably have a very different series of sentences.
I do like that Michael's diet is close to what the internet would call girl dinner, and V's diet is close to what people would call cowboy in the desert dinner. It's just like a can of beans around the fire, like camping out.
That honestly sounds lit.
It is awesome, and for some reason, beans listen, I've had an awakening. It was probably somewhere like last year. No, because because I'm vegetarian, y'all, that's all you have to know, and that I need to find a way to eat a lot of proteins, and beans are the solution. So I had to start eating a lot of beans, and beans are actually amazing. They're great.
No,
they make you fart, but that's, minor inconvenience.
That's why we have a noise gate on V during the pod.
You're releasing the toxins that are in everybody else's body because they eat too much beef. Beef keeps the toxins in your body and they don't get released.
Yeah, the fart goes in your blood. Do you want farts in your blood?
Yeah, you have... Yeah, I don't know.
Wow.
Carbonated veins.
That's so funny. I was going to talk more vegetarian stuff, but maybe people are bored of this by now.
I'm into it.
You're into
All my comics are about this stuff, so this is technically what I'm doing. Yeah.
Factory farming should be illegal.
Oh my god, dude.
Watch the movie Okja. Then you'll...
I've never watched that movie, but okay. Listen,
it's pretty sad.
I will say that I watched a ton of documentaries about factory farming, and I got some of the stuff was just so sad. You just question your life.
Yeah, it's an atrocity.
It's really bad, but however, I am because when you become sorry y'all, with comic, we all bring it back to comics, but I feel very self-conscious, or I get a very negative reaction when I see any kind of movies or comics or short films or animated things where it's vegetarian, vegan propaganda, because once
because no one wants to be propagandaed at. I feel like
it's because it's didactic. Full circle. We did it. No, but it's that thing where it's and also because as someone who's who cares about the cause or whatever, you try really hard not to antagonize people, because if you do, then they're fuck you, and then they're not gonna do it, and they're gonna so when you see the propaganda, you're fuck, this is working against us,
You know what it is though? You know what it is? When you watch something like that, I think it feels equivalent to a punchline being given away too soon. The whole time you're watching the short, you're thinking about what they want you to think. And you're okay, at the end, the character's going to die, and then you're going to feel bad that factory farming, whatever. And I feel like there's probably ways of doing it that are more subtle, that aren't heavy-handed or whatever. But I'm not going to lie. It's hard. It's hard, and I also understand that art is an important part of political movements, so I have a hard time arguing either which way, because I also recognize that art can be very impactful for a political movement. I'm personally not a huge fan of political art, but I also have views that are political that I'm well, if art's not the way to get them out, I don't know how to convince people. Yeah. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the same thing with the didactic thing. It's the predictability of it. Once you understand the theme, you know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And maybe also the shameful element to it, where it's if you don't do the thing, you're a bad person.
Yeah.
I think it's when there's judgment embedded in it on top of it.
Michael, you were talking about your views. If you were to make a film either about leftists or with a leftist tone, without being didactic, can you think of a way that you would you would do it?
I would not do it because I am not confident in my positions enough to say this is how we should behave. There are some things where I'm like, we should not do that. But anything that's like, I would consider myself pretty leftist. But I also I'm not confident. Like, I'm confident enough to donate to causes, but I'm not going to make art about it because I don't.
Yeah. Everything's
complicated, and I'm like, also, I don't know enough about this to talk about. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, that's the thing is, like, I am being fairly vague because it's just like, there are people whose job is to talk about this and convey this information. And if I say something stupid or wrong, it makes their job harder. I'm gonna talk about interpersonal relationships and guns.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that I feel like the stories that we want to tell change throughout our lives, and you never know. I was curious about, like, even if someday, if you were like, if there's anything I want to tell about this message, it is this. I was just curious about.
If I do it, it's just gonna happen.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I start thinking about that, like 6-7 hours a day, and that's all I'm reading about, that's what the story I write is going to be. You know, like, I think a really great, one of my favorite comics is Ben Passmore did a series of floppies about a guy who's addicted to porn in the desert. And it's very political and very good, and it's like, it's so fucking good. It's like one of my favorite comics ever, and it's highly political, but it is not didactic, and it conveys those ideas so beautifully. And it's like, this is Ben Passmore making what Ben Passmore wants to make, and it is the thing, but it's like so clear this is just what this artist is thinking about, and they're just, what is cool, what is good. I'm also thinking about this, I'm talking about it, and it's,
I feel like a lot of comic artists that I've seen do non-didactic, but like with a heavy theme that might be tangentially related to politics, is often tied to autobio. Like, I can think of, for example, the one about, it's a French, so his name, Guy Delisle, he did a comic about working as an animation director overseas in North Korea. It's pretty interesting. And because it's autobio, it's like not as didactic. It's just, this is what happened and how it was. And then
almost all the political comics I like are autobio.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that's a super effective way, because just say it. Like, say the thing. Like, if you have a message, you should just say what the message is. Like, don't. I think it's why I don't like paintings. Because if I did a painting, I would just write what I was trying to say on the painting. Because I'd be like, nobody's going to misunderstand me on this one.
You know who I feel has a good balance? I feel like there's some Miyazaki films that strike a good balance with that. Like Princess Mononoke, it's very clear that there's themes of like man and nature. But but I think the interesting thing that they do with those films is that there are bad people on the natures, like there's bad animals and there's bad man, and like it's unclear what the preachy right thing to do is, but it's like it's just talking about themes in the world that are like a struggle, and I think that feels easier to watch.
I think it's definitely what you're saying, Sean, where it's like nobody at the end is proven right. I think I was just talking to somebody about how Jurassic Park is such an iconic movie, not just because there's like great spectacle, like the T-Rex and the truck and the raptors and all that, but also you have this like amazing scene with everybody around the table all having different opinions on what that means to bring back like a life form that should maybe not be brought back. And I think that's like that makes the movie very complete, because it's like it's very entertaining and fun and exciting to watch, but also your soul gets fed by like 3 or 4 different point of views on like should be.
And sometimes you're like, man, I'm rooting for this dinosaur getting these people. I mean, sometimes the dinosaurs in that movie are the act of nature's vengeance. You know what I mean? Like there are times in that movie where bad people are killed by the dinosaur, and you're like, "Fuck yeah, dinosaur is cool." Like I don't want dinosaur to be bad guy. I like dinosaur. You know.
The toilet scene where the dude gets eaten off the toilet is one of the greatest moments in cinema. But yeah, I mean, I think that's also like why I say like I relate to autobio stuff. Like my mind on something has never been changed by a fictional story. But if you tell me about your real experience, because it's a design construct, like but you can change my mind on something real easy. Like there's a lot of, things and causes I support where somebody says, this is this project they're doing. These are the numbers and effects we've observed. Look at this spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And that'll change my mind. Mm-hmm. But if you do a fictionalized narrative supporting,
you've never had a single fictional story impact you on a philosophical level, let's say. Not that. Let's not say political.
I'm pitching a spreadsheet show.
Philosophy, I guess.
Yeah, but that's really broad. Like if you look at like a book like 1984, everyone thinks that book is on their side, and there are a lot of books that impact me very deeply. That like Vonnegut's work, I can see how he has the thing with the people leveling the playing field. That theme in a lot of his books, where it's like, if you're beautiful, you get scarred. I could see how like a libertarian could be like, this man is speaking to my fears. Like, I think the relationship to the work, I've been changed by books, but I can also see how people could get totally in a different place from the same work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, specifically 1984, everyone on every side of every argument has been 1984, and like everyone thinks that book is on their side. Like everyone.
Wait, what do you mean that book
like
is
supports
on their
their
side?
theories or supports their
I see.
Yeah,
That's okay.
Like I don't look at a lot of like internet bickering anymore, but when I do, like it doesn't matter what position you're taking, somebody's going to be like, 1984 warned us that these other people we don't like are coming for us. And, like everybody talks about how like Fahrenheit 451 is about censorship. And like that's everybody's like, this censorship is so important. Ray Bradbury has said tons of times, this book is about how technology negatively affects people's life. It has nothing to do with censorship.
I think it's so crazy because that is so funny. This is the literature segment of Creative Block now. But like, I love these books and that's why I'm like passionate about it. But I remember reading Fahrenheit for the first time and I was like the scene that impacted me the most is when they're at home watching screens and
they're watching streamers.
They're watching
with
streamers.
Headphones.
They are, and like when I read that, I was just like, "What? That guy is like a visionary. This is crazy." That was the craziest thing to me. And I guess he kind of like elaborated from sitcoms because people had a para relationship with sitcom characters, but
they all have AirPods in. He describes AirPods.
Oh, I don't remember that part. That's crazy.
There's these little seashell speakers in their ears that they're listening to it and ignoring each other in that scene. And it's like, this is way too accurate and upsetting.
And just to wrap up on the dystopias, I guess, my favorite book is Brave New World, because I also feel
fantastic.
Like the way it described, I still get chills from like, I'm like, that guy. The book is not 100% perfect, obviously, but there's some stuff where I'm like, that's the book for me where like, that changed my views on the world a little bit. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
I mean, there's like a lot of stuff about like how engaging in like pleasure is like a distraction, right? And like you're kind of held in the dark. Yeah, I mean, like I am very, very. I consider myself very politically oriented, and I refuse to consume political content in any way I can view as entertainment.
Yes.
Like, I am terrified of the impact that would have on my brain. And, like, it's because of that book. It's like...
Did you read Amusing Ourselves to Death?
I read that a long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I went down a whole... Social media is the worst thing that ever happened to anyone. Rabbit hole.
Is that why you deleted your profile on Instagram?
No, I just do that occasionally now. I did that now because it's just like I am working on a lot of things, and I have a very addictive personality by nature. You know, like I come from like a family with a lot of addiction issues, and as a child, I was like, hey, there's going to be problems if you, like, I was very lucky to be angry enough at the right people to miss some of that. And I'm still very, I don't currently drink. I will occasionally like flirt with drinking, but if I find myself drinking more than 2 days in a row, I panic. And social media is like, if I'm on it, I'm on it. Mm. Like I can't, like when I am on it, I don't do it through my phone. I do it through like Facebook Business. So there's like a barrier of difficulty. Mm-hmm. And even with that, and I have nothing to promote right now. I have nothing interesting to say. Any content I put out is, if somebody like, I can make, I'll make videos of just me eating a vegetable, saying some dumb stuff, and people are like, ha ha ha. But it's like, that's not enriching anyone's life. There's no value in that. That's like purely me being bored and being addicted to seeing numbers go up. So I was just like, I'm just not going to do this for a while. Mm. Also, I'm going to have to be on it so much. I have like 2 big books coming out next year, and I'm basically going to have to be online constantly. So it's like, I'm going to take a little break.
Mm. Oh, I think that's good for your mental.
Yeah, probably make more money if I was on it, but
we'll never know. I wonder, but yeah. Go ahead, Sean.
No. So how do you, when you're making these stories, is there part of you that's thinking about like how are you engaging or growing an audience? Are you of the mindset of like, just make the things and people will find their way to them, or do you have alternative routes that like are you working with somebody that helps publicize it, or that sort of stuff?
For me, when I do strips, I'll go through phases of doing strips where I post them on Reddit and on Instagram and experience growth. And there's an element to me doing a 4-panel strip where it's a puzzle. It's the puzzle of, how can I say this in a way that will get people interested? And, obviously, like, I'm not just, my strips still are me, and I'm not the most pleasant individual at all times. So, like, there's a ceiling on what I can reach. But when I do strips, but it's more like a game. It's not like I'm going to make more money. Like, and to me, the long run is making sure I produce more work and making sure the work I'm doing is good. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I don't really, it's hard to explain because I'm like also very confrontational with my readers a lot of the time. Like I'm not trying to delight them, but also people don't always want to be delighted. So I think that's a positive a lot. Like people want. Are
you saying you're confrontational through your work, or like you're like in comments or something?
Yeah, like when I make work for the internet, it'll be a lot of stuff where it's the characters looking at their phone, and the joke is, "Hey, you're like literally wasting your life right now." Which is like, if I was trying to make money in like, there is a segment of people who are like, "Haha, yes, this is me," but a lot of people find that deeply unpleasant. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to explain. I don't know.
It's like they were feeling called out.
Yeah, like I think just trying to purely please an audience won't make them happy anyway. Like, I don't think that's really what anyone wants. And there's also like a thing of, this is somewhat of a side tangent, but there's a thing of like people who make less accessible art, who have 10,000 followers, are selling way more books than people who make very accessible art who have 100,000 followers.
Interesting.
And it's because it's easy to follow and like and engage something simple, but that the transference of the buy-in of buying a book is not as easy. Mm-hmm. Because it's just like the way you, like, the number is the same if you look at it on social media. So you're like, these people are doing the same thing, but this person's number is higher. But really loving a comic and hitting like gives you the same number as kind of half-heartedly liking a comic and hitting like. And it's, I think, pleasing people. As long as the number is going up and reaching people, you're in a good place. But, I was talking earlier about how, like, I gained, like, 10,000 followers very quickly. I did not see a substantial growth in sales after that I did see some, and I'm sure some of those people over time have engaged with the things that I do that are more complicated just through happenstance. But I don't think people seeing the like short-term effects of that growth is basically nothing. I do think there's a long-term growth of those people are more likely to engage with the longer things that are not just the funny short thing. Yeah, I think the level of investment in communication you have with readers is much more. Also, when I post hard stuff, I lose a lot of followers. So maybe I'm just saying this to make myself feel better.
Well, okay. Quick social media blurb, but when did you notice that trend? Because I've noticed, like, for me on Instagram, I'm just bleeding followers now. It's over.
I go through phases of bleeding and growth. But I think a lot of people are blaming the algorithm, but I really don't think it's that. I think it's the phone is cached. Like, it's not interesting to look at a phone anymore. Like we humans are we're like novelty seeking creatures. Like, it's very rare for somebody to do the same thing consistently for a long time. And I think people are just bored of the phone.
That's good.
Like, because there are still people who experience growth doing other things. And, it's just, I don't think it's the algorithm. I think it's just there's so many comics online. The audience that is going to read comics online already did it. And I think a lot of them are now moved on to, more, a deeper form of that. I'm finding these, webtoons that are, 2 years in that have a ton of readers that I've never heard of. And, they're selling tons of merch, and you go to their Instagram, they have 2,000 followers. And it's just this isn't, the audience just doesn't want to do it this way. And that's just what it is.
There's just a way that other people are keeping up with that isn't tied to social media. It's just they check every week and yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. And I think this is I feel like sometimes this can feel like a bummer of a conversation, but I also think that there are people listening right now that aren't sold on Instagram because of the AI stuff. Half of them have left for Kara, and then they're like, okay, now I'm on a website where it's just a bunch of other artists. Are people going to even be able to buy my work here? Where do I post? Where do I put my energy? I want to make this stuff, but how do I figure out how to get people to see my stuff when I make it? And so I think that these are valuable insights. We don't have very many people come on the show and who are as anti-social media as you are, and I think that's an important view.
I owe my career to social media, and I still use social media. I just use it differently in different ways. Right now, Reddit is my big... I get so much through Reddit. After having experience, I just experiment with everything over and over. But it's also I will actually engage with this AI thing. I have to. I'm sorry.
Let's do it. It's the episode.
Everyone's scared of AI. If you have a corporate job, you need to unionize right now. You need to get all these executives over AI. If you make art directly, nobody is ever going to be replaced by AI. Taylor Swift, if you go on Reddit, people care about who she's dating. It is a big part of people's relationship with Taylor Swift's music. The computer cannot date someone. The relationship with the artist who makes the work is just as important to the audience, and it always will be. The Kardashians are so famous. If you just made AI of whatever, I don't even know what their show is, but if you made that show exactly with AI, and people knew those were not real people, nobody would watch it. And also, lots of artists who are not technically good, that the AI can make better art than, are incredibly popular. And the relationship with the idea that a human has made this thing is a deeply important thing to the consumers of art. Deeply important.
Whether they know it or not, it's like a subconscious relatable thing.
Yeah.
Can I play the devil's advocate?
Yeah, go for it.
Hatsune Miku?
That's not AI, though. That's a team of... That's a team of people editing the AI. And I think that's legitimate and cool. But that is a team of people with taste looking at the information that comes out saying, this is the product we're building and how we're making it. I think people will use AI to make
and
beautiful,
I think
things.
They've masked it in a clever way, in the same way that like the gorillas got popular. Is like compared to the gorillas Hatsune Miku, it's hard to notice an actual difference in the outward presentation of it. It's like it's a cartoon that's performing or doing the thing, right? I saw a thing recently where everyone was freaking out about there's a new video game thing that everyone's freaking out about, a video game AI breakthrough that just happened. That
is it the Doom thing?
It's the Doom thing. Basically, they have made a version where the AI, with absolutely no code, no programming, no program file, no whatever, the AI is able to generate all of the game Doom in a playable fashion by just using like image prediction of after analyzing the Doom game. So it's able to do it live at 20 frames per second, and basically like everyone's freaking out because they're like, you don't need a thing to like you don't need to program. There's no program. You didn't need to program the game. It's just predictive images. But the thing that people aren't realizing, or the thing that people are overlooking is, yeah, but someone had to make the game first so it can study it.
Yeah.
like people had to make the game, and then basically they just run that through a thing, and now maybe that thing can now stream it more, like without having to download a file or whatever it is. At the same time, also, it probably costs like 40 times the amount of energy that it costs to charge a phone just to play that game. Like it's probably so expensive for one person to play that game, like as far as like power charging with the AI. But I mean, I think that while these things look revolutionary on the surface, there is a chink in the armor here where it's like a facade, and it can be scary.
I'm only talking about this because I know I don't have to deal with any YouTube comments. I have no fear of AI. I think there are some pipeline production people who should be very worried about this. But the thing with like AI generated art, you have to have somebody to look at the art and say this is correct, and most people cannot do that. And we're at like a real bottleneck with what these things can do. Like, they can't edit themselves.
And they're sourcing all of the things that they've created so far, and so they're learning off themselves now, which is messing up the images, and that's funny. I also think that it's not very good at, like, the more cartoony your art is, the more abstract it really is. And I think it has trouble with more cartoony art. I mean there's all sorts of one of the strongest arguments I've seen is that AI art is not going to be able to make new things or new art styles. It's able to mimic. But
however, I do love robot humor, I call it, where it's just like complete non sequitur. I don't know if you've seen these comics that were 100% made by AI, like the script, the everything. And I was like, damn, I actually like these because they're like so insane. Yeah. It's like someone on a bench, and then somebody shows up, and then there's like a,
but it's funny because it's bad though. You know what I mean? It's funny because it's bad, and in the same way that a lot of like absurdist meme humor are. I actually think that there's going to be a trend where, because AI, there's so many AI posts that are like completely absurdist and they don't make sense, and all of the captions don't make sense, and the videos are nonsensical. I almost think that people are going to go the other way and only be into really, really grounded things, because AI is going to go so far in the other direction, making absurdist, weird, like, transforming stuff.
That was one of my favorite like type of art, you know, like surrealism, Dada, all of that shit, and now it's like the robots get to do
No, I mean they just did AI first. That's all. They just did AI art. It's the precursors to AI art. It's Dada, right?
One of the reasons I also don't talk about it much in public, which I will talk about here because not my YouTube comments, is I actually think artists have kind of monopolized the conversation on AI in a way that is very, like, the economies that AI, like, it's going to fuck up accounting, it's going to fuck up x-ray technicians, it's going to ruin, like, a lot of real, like, way more jobs. And we can always say, this is an artisanal comic I made myself. This is an artisanal drawing a human made. If an AI can analyze my X-ray better than a human, I do not want the artisanal X-ray technician. I want the more accurate person. Mm-hmm. And like, you know, if the AI is going to get me more money back on my taxes, it's unreasonable to not pick that decision for most humans. And like, there's huge parts of the economy that I think AI is going to destroy.
But why replace all of the most human fun things? Like, the point is that we get rid of it's like I get so frustrated because there's so much effort getting put into AI, like doing all of the most fun human things that like, the point is we're trying to spend less time at our jobs, have the AI replace some bullshit that I have to do over there so I can get off early and get to draw on my own or make music or whatever. Stop trying to replace the stuff I'm trying to do for fun instead of like that. Like, I don't want to, how about this? I don't want to have to guess my taxes for the IRS. How about the IRS just use some AI to just tell me what I have to pay, and then I'll just either pay it or I'll appeal it and explain the thing. But like, how about that? I don't know.
That's kind of what I'm talking about. Is I think that's where we are going, and so much of the conversation being focused on art is I actually don't think we're replaceable. And I think there will be catastrophic economic problems with a lot of things involving AI.
Yeah.
And I don't think it will actually. I think we will go through a period where companies will try to replace us, and I think they're going to.
I think it's going to backfire on them, and then not only will people not watch those shows because it's all just made by AI, and people are going to have a natural aversion to it, but also it's going to give them so many pipeline problems because they don't have. It's not reliable enough to wield it yet in a repeatable, perfect way, and I don't know.
Yeah, I do think there's something to be said about, like, I don't know, like, that's me trying to be optimistic, I guess, but maybe AI can be the disruptor that we need, in the sense that it's like, I think a lot of people right now are kind of tired of the job market. There's no loyalty from anybody anymore, you know? You just go in a job, you could get fired the next day.
Are you implying that AI is going to be like the ex that your partner leaves you for, but the AI is so awful that they regret leaving you, and they can really appreciate you after they leave, and they'll want to come back?
Mm-hmm.
That phone call's never as fun as you think it's going to be. You wait for it and it happens. It's like, oh, this phone call sucks. I would actually like to get that one from an employer.
Oh, man.
That would be, dude. That's the day. That's the day when you're like, I don't know. You have to think about, like, positive things sometimes, I guess, because else it's easy to be doom and gloom. I did read in an article that, fortunately for all of us, the sci-fi crowd, sci-fi writers did their job very well, and they prepped everybody to be very
anti-Skynet.
Suspicious?
Sean. No, but like they don't, like, the crowd, the general public is already prepped to not be excited about AI, like, because all the movies, all of the fiction that has been written about robots or new intelligence has always been about people being replaced, people being, like, threatened, so people already feel threatened by AI. Like, there's very few people in the general public that are excited about it.
Yeah, I know people listening are going to have seen a million takes from artists that are very doom and gloom. I don't think that that's something that we want to perpetuate on this. While I understand the importance of mobilizing certain action through, like, unions or legislation, and how sometimes
you should do it.
And how sometimes being very on one side, doom and gloom, can feel like the important way to mobilize people. I also think that it's important to not lose your shit, and if you want to draw, you keep drawing, and people are still going to want things drawn from you, not a computer.
I could be wrong, but my perspective is, if I'm wrong, I don't think there's much I'm going to have been able to do about it because I'm not part of any sort of cooperative environment, really. Like, the way comics works, there's not anything I can do or say that will prevent a consumer from purchasing that product.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to die, I'm going to die. Like, which is, that's kind of what being in a comics career trained you for. Before AI, I've been like, damn, I might starve to death. I might have to hit the drywall again. And I hope if it happens soon enough that I still have knees.
Yeah. Like, I think what a lot of people are scared of is they're scared of, like, someone coming around, like some scammer, and running all of Michael Sweater comics through an AI and just starting to produce Michael Sweater comic, like that somebody is targeting you.
So funny. I have an enamel pin that is so bootlegged, it's absurd. Like, if you
that
Google
someone's
it,
selling.
It's just like it's in the AliExpress supply chain.
That's funny.
That is so crazy. That is so crazy.
The thing is, I think it is the funniest thing ever. Like, it's not stealing a potential sale from me, because when somebody goes to a flea, like, people send me pictures of it in flea markets and stuff, and it's like, my product wasn't going to be there. They weren't going to buy that off me and put it on their table, and so it's just kind of funny. And also, what am I going to do about it? Like, I'm not going to stress out about stuff I can't control.
Yeah.
If the computer's going to kill me, it's going to kill me. If the bootlegger's going to kill me, they're going to kill me. What am I going to do? Like, so I just don't even think about it. Like, and people are very surprised when I think it's funny when they send me the pictures of that. But I'm at the point now where when I see a bunch of pins, I'm like, oh, am I in here? And I've, like, found it a couple times, and I think it's so fun.
That is so funny. That's so crazy. I do think there's a little bit, in a weird kind of way, it's almost like, wow, you're kind of a legend now because you already have your bootleg. I think, like, if you get bootlegged, that's when you've made it,
Yeah. Well, also, everything good gets bootlegged. I buy bootleg designer stuff because I'm not buying... Like, there was, like, a Supreme North Face jacket I really wanted that cost, like, $2,000. I'm not paying $2,000 for a jacket, so I just bought a bootleg. And it's not like they lost money. I was never going to buy that. So, like, the same thing with my thing is, like, the people who know who I am are going to buy it if they know I have it. Like, I don't care about, because it was never money that was mine. Somebody else is making money using my intellectual property, but they didn't take any money from me. If somebody starts, if Hot Topic does it, it will be a very different reaction.
Yeah.
But, like, and if somebody starts a thing and they're like, these are Michael Sweater comics, I'm going to be like, yo, those aren't Michael Sweater comics. Read my comic. But if they get a substantial readership, if somebody bootlegged my stuff and had an AI make a separate webpage that was Michael Sweater comics, and it got 1 million readers, I could siphon off a big portion of those readers by being like, yo, actually, I'm the real thing. Come check out my thing. I would be so excited if an AI got 1 million followers using my name, because that's an immediate audience I didn't have that I could tap.
That's right.
I could be like, yo, guys, check this out. I'm actually the real thing. I could get probably 200 of them.
This new account made by this person just doesn't have the robotic sense of humor that I was originally drawn to the AI Michael Sweater for.
They're not focused enough on rhythms. It's a little too surreal.
He's eating beef. I don't trust it.
There's an infamous story about the lead vocalist for the Japanese punk band Gizm, Sakevi.
Yeah, I almost wore my Gizm shirt today.
He famously had encountered someone who made a bootleg shirt of their band at a show, and he stabbed them. and it reminds me of how times have changed.
I couldn't find the Gizm shirt, but like half of my closet is bootleg Japanese DB bands.
That's so funny.
It's like half of my closet.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Crust, and I like that.
To be fair, I did try to find the real one first, but they don't exist.
No, dude, it's hard to find. At this point, most of the stuff that you're going to find from that band is probably bootleg, but it is funny, yeah.
I have like 30 of like just Japanese crust band bootlegs, and I found them digging through forums. I found a link to a record store in Malaysia that sold them, and I had to email the store with Google Translate to like order them.
Funny.
I'm sure now they're just like on AliExpress or whatever, but like I had to like get in contact with the store with the like translate thing and try to figure out how to send them money for it. And it was like a whole process. But like once I finally got them to sell it to me, I was like, these are all of these. I am sending you $200 right now. I will never be able, like, I tried so hard to get this one shirt. I'm just getting all of these shirts because I will never
Japanese
be able to pull this
hardcore
off.
bands have always been some of my favorites. Fucking Bastard. Also, fucking, just in general, a lot of good ones.
Us being into that is proof that AI cannot replace everything. Like, those are objectively not good sounding records. Like, they objectively sound terrible.
They're bad, and people like it because they're bad. I mean, I dare AI to try to record lo-fi black metal. Actually, you know what? I actually wonder it might be able to do.
No, don't put that prompt in.
No. No, it's just gonna. I mean, it's probably gonna lean into some of the sus, the sus stuff. But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, but my favorite thing I own is I have a bootleg VHS of the Spending Loud Night Japanese Crust D-Beat show. And, like, there is something about the process I went through to, like, get that back when that was a thing. And now I can just, like, kind of watch it on YouTube. And it just... I feel like we're going to move towards a thing where, like, hey, don't put this online. This just exists for real.
Yeah.
And I think people into that are going to become more guarded about it.
Yeah.
Where, like, real things that you actually had to go do become, like... Because it's like a quest. And there's, like, no... Like, now if I want this shirt, I just go on Google and I'm positive there's, like, Redbubble site selling it.
Well, I feel like one of the reasons why I'm a little bit less emotionally invested in all of this stuff happening is when I feel like maybe around the 3-year mark when I first entered the animation industry, my perspective changed a lot when I started making GIFs that would blow up and then they would get reposted on other accounts, and not, they wouldn't credit me, and then and someone would send me a post on Facebook with millions of likes and it's my GIF with new text over it, and I realized that, like, there's just sort of this, like, wild magic of the internet where if you're putting your stuff out there, you have no control of what people are going to do with it. You just have to, it's sort of like you're setting it free, and sometimes some wild crazy shit happens that's out of your control, and there's something interesting about that too.
For people who haven't listened to all the episodes, Sean got Matt Furied.
a little bit, just very slightly. Yeah, I mean, I did have a on the QAnon documentary. There is a GIF that just happens to be on one of the bulletin, the forums or whatever, that is like, it has nothing to actually do with the thing, but it was a reaction GIF used, and that's one of, I would say I maybe have like 3 GIFs that ended up doing that, and they just go out of control, and they're just offset. It's like they have a new life of their own, and I mean, I didn't gain followers off of that stuff, but I feel like I've come to peace. I've like with that stuff. If I put stuff online, there's an expectation that it could enter a zone out of my control, and I'm not gonna put huge watermarks all over my shit. Like, that's, I just don't think that's something that I'm gonna do. I'll put a signature, but I'm not gonna put a huge watermark all over my stuff and like so no one can enjoy it the right way. I don't know.
So when I post my strips, I don't even sign them all the time online. I don't put my webpage on them. And people on Reddit will be like, "Can you please write your webpage on this?" And it's like, I put it in the comments. You can click through on my account. But it's like, I think there's a lot of attempts to control other people's behavior that's not possible. It's just like, this thing is like, whether I like it or not.
Yeah, I sort of feel like Ash setting all of his Pokemon free. Like, while when I was a kid, I used to get really frustrated that he would get like the coolest possible Pokemon and then give Charizard away to go live. And I'm like, what the you're supposed to collect them all and keep them all prisoners, like what is going on? And he's just like letting Butterfree go out, like, so it's kind of like that for me. Like I learned to set my guys free, and
that's
like
how Pokemon politically influenced you, Sean. Now you let your art, it's a free for all.
Yep.
That's
I also think I imagine a large portion of the people listening to this are on the newer end of making art.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like, there's all these things that are scary. But a thing a lot of younger artists, you're only in it for 2 or 3 years, you don't realize is the world is always ending.
That's true.
The like panic you're feeling, there's always something happening like that in comics. And you should take, or animation, or everything. And you should always take it seriously, but you have to learn to live with that feeling that it's ending. Because as soon as this AI thing's up, there's gonna be another thing. Like, there is no end of history. Like, there will be another threat to our livelihood and our processes. So you have to learn to, like, kind of...
Pencils are gonna go extinct because trees aren't gonna be around anymore. Like, there's gonna be something, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing I'm always worried about with, like, new people is seeing them panic. And it's like, take it seriously, but don't panic this much because you're never going to stop panicking. Because it's, like, I remember how controversial the idea of putting, like, were either of you, like, around when people started putting comics on the web?
I mean...
I wasn't keeping track of the drama, I guess you could say.
And I wasn't, because I guess I was reading webcomics as young as, like, 14. When I got my first computer, I got a computer at 14. But webcomics had been around, I feel like...
In, like, 2006 or 2007, there was a huge argument that webcomics people were doing the wrong thing because they were devaluing the work by putting it online for free.
What?
Like, people would not give webcomics people the time of day and were very mean to them. Like they were scabs. Like, I feel like this is like lost lore in history, but there were, like, podcasts where web cartoonists and print cartoonists would debate, like, a political debate about whether it was appropriate or good to put your work online.
That's crazy.
But that's the thing is, it's always the end of the world. And they were right, because you can't really fight the future. Yeah. I don't want to say any names, but there were a lot of very respected print cartoonists from that era who were very rude to web cartoonists.
Charles Schultz.
I'm not going to say any names. I think that man was... I think he was fully in the zone still in this era.
I know.
That man cooked for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like... And, like, I have a bunch of archives on my computer of old forums that, like, don't exist anymore. Like, I have the Comics Journal forum going back to when it started. And I'll read through that, and it's like, everybody... There was always something wrong. And there were always reasonable things. Like, when you looked at it in the context. But it was like, it's always on fire.
Once you've seen a few apocalypses, they stop surprising you.
I had that realization when I was, like, really into tarot and shit, and I was, like, kind of trying to study tarot, and I was, like, seeing how these cards that are, like, that were sort of, like, printed or, like, became a system in the 1400s are still relating the same human experience that we're going through now in 2024, where it's like, the world is ending, or like, spring, and things are coming around again.
You could still be scorned by a lover.
Yeah, exactly.
All these years later.
Exactly.
But I think it's important to not become nihilistic based on that, which is something I went through for a while, where I was like, okay, these patterns will never stop, so I'm just not part of it.
Yeah.
But also, you gotta learn to balance, like, because if you're not making art because of AI, you are making a horrible mistake.
You're letting the AI... It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy then.
Well, we don't know how it's going to play out. And if it plays out where AI doesn't matter, you just lost a bunch of time. Like, that was important. And also, if AI does work, maybe we end up in a utopia, like a money-free utopia. Probably not. But And then you had all that time to develop the skill for what you are going to be doing with your free time. Like,
yeah, we just have to have blind faith in companies to lead us towards a utopia. They have our best interests at heart.
Like I said, I don't think it's happening.
They have us in mind. They're trying to lead us to the promised land.
What I'm saying is,
so funny.
Infinite universes, maybe possible. I doubt it. But yeah, I don't know. Just you can control what you can control. You gotta draw pages. You gotta draw.
That's true. We do have questions from our listeners, and I would love to get some of them before we run out of time because we're having too much fun. Let's see. So our patron, Brother to Drummer, asks, do you have a song or songs that you like to either play or listen to that will put you in a good headspace?
When I am listening to music, my YouTube music recap is absurd. Also, get YouTube Music because it's part of YouTube Premium and it's better than Spotify because then you don't have ads on YouTube. That's the only good advice I've given this entire time. But I can't listen to music with guitar in it because I will get up and play guitar. So I listen to a lot of the Chainsmokers every year is my top artist.
Oh, really?
I love the Chainsmokers. It's my favorite. I don't know if I could say band. That could be honestly. That could be AI at this point. I don't actually know, but
they make really catchy music.
I love a hook. I love the sound aesthetics of weird music. My ideal band would be somebody who records like Japanese D-beat, but is making house music pop. That would be my favorite thing I've ever heard in my life. I'm gonna get an AI algorithm and have it spit it out for me. But yeah, just like
almost like fast dungeon synth. like it's like that's kind of how a lot of dungeon synths feels a little
you
bit.
You get a broccoli top haircut boy to croon over that in a nice jacket, and that is my favorite band.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the answer. A lot of radio music, top 40s country, absurd amount of top 40s country. That doesn't count as guitar because I can't play like that.
Brother to Drummer has a follow-up question. What is a standard riff you like to play when picking up your instrument in a store?
I just play my own stuff. I play in a weird tuning that is not... I don't know how to play in standard. I don't actually know how to play anyone else's songs, which is weird because I feel like that's not normal.
I'm the same way, though. No, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I only play in drop C, and that's the only way I can play.
Yeah. I'm in a version of open A where the low string is dropped down to A. So, but it's just like it's like drop D, and then the second and third strings are also drop D, and then the rest are accent notes. Okay. So, like, I can play other people's songs by ear by just finding the notes, but it's like Guitar for Dummies.
What band led you to? I'm assuming there's a band that tuned their stuff that way that you liked.
It's a band called Midwest Pen Pals.
Okay.
It's D-A-E-A C#E, and then I do that down 5 steps. I don't know what my tuning is. But they did I learned 3 or 4 songs that they did. I had kind of played in standard a little bit before that. Not seriously, but after I learned those 3 songs, this was in like 2008, 2009. I have never played in standard, so I just play my own songs. I play whatever song I'm working on at the time when I go into a store, because that's what I'm going to be playing on it if I buy the guitar anyway. I also can't remember my own songs, so that's
so funny.
Yeah, there's no way I can remember other people's. Like, anytime...
Well, you said you're recording a 60-song album. Anybody who can remember 60 songs is a nerd. We're not trying to be...
is a nerd.
There's songs that I've recorded in the last 3 days. I take videos of myself playing them. I don't actually know how to play them.
Yeah.
I will forget how to play our songs that I've played the night before, and I'll have to tell people this isn't on the set. It's not on the set. It's not on the set. It's not on the set.
You'll have to relearn them before you go on tour through all of the videos.
No, before a show, I will watch the videos of certain songs just because my mind will not hold information that way. And sometimes I'll forget the words. I have the first line of every song written down on the set list because I won't remember my own lyrics. As soon as it starts, if I know the first line, the whole thing kicks in intuitively. But
What's your favorite first line from one of your songs? Can you remember anyone you like?
I don't actually like my first lines. I saved the good ones for the end of the choruses.
Well, that's why this question's hard.
Yeah, first line.
It's a little pop quiz.
Oh, I really like... I have a song where the opening line is, I hate when you talk about the things you've done. You are the sun and I am no one. Because nice. I feel like it's like a... Generally... when I make art, I try not to be self-reflective, just because there's so much art that isn't self-reflective. Especially in music, it's very much, this is me, my experience, and a lot of my work is written around spite. And I think that it's a song about being like jealous of other people talking about what they're doing while things are going poorly. And I was very proud of myself for being able to put that in a song, because that feels like kind of embarrassing, because it's like, my life's pretty good. Why am I feeling like that? Yeah, that's it.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you for being vulnerable and letting us know.
Not a good lyric, though.
Let's see. Mallard, our patron Mallard asks, any tips on how to start learning music? I have an interest in creating some melodies with keyboard or guitar, but I don't really know how to start, and the process can seem a little overwhelming at times.
Just do it. You're going to be bad no matter what. For guitar, I do encourage people not to do what I did, because you will be seriously put in a weird box, and playing with other people becomes very difficult. But I would say just pick a couple songs you like and learn them, and like, don't worry about how difficult they are, because anyone can play the most difficult guitar part slow. And like, you know, you're not gonna, when you first start, you're not gonna play a simple punk song well either. You just need to engage with the things you like. And once you get into the kick of the things you like about songs, you'll start obsessively following those sort of rabbit holes.
Yeah.
And it's like, nobody who's good at guitar can do everything. Like, when you know how the guitar works and you listen to bands, it's like, wait, every one of these songs is the same song. Like, there's that band, The Mountain Goats.
Yeah.
And that dude has, like, he's kind of been on one, I think, trying to fight this. The first 10 albums, there's like 18 songs that share chord progressions. You just, it's not important. It's all the same thing. Just do the things you like, and then you're going to get invested if you like it. Also, you don't have to be good. I'm not good at guitar. I don't know how this works. Like, most of my favorite guitarists are not very good, and good guitars tend to be very difficult to listen to.
Oh, dude. Yeah, like very, like, math rock type of, like...
Yeah.
A lot of good guitarists don't write good music. They write guitar that's impressive.
Yeah. There's like a window of skill between slightly better than bad and really good. And in that window, you can make great music. Like it has to, you have to hit the point where it doesn't sound like you don't know how to play guitar. And you can't get interested in, if you know how to play any chord in any variation, you're also probably overthinking it. Even though I've heard people do that and actually do a really good job. But most people I've played with who can do that, I'm like, this is obnoxious. There's a really big window that's the entire middle of the skill thing. And as long as you're in there and you're happy, you're fine.
Yeah.
Puzzle Glum asks, what is your favorite thing about making indie comics specifically?
I like that I can do it without permission at first. You can just make a comic right now. This is the best time in history to make a comic. Like, you can do a perfect bound book in color and do print on demand. Print on demand is good enough now. I'm tired of the argument that it's not. If you do black and white print on demand, you can actually make money. Like, I was doing print on demand before I was getting book deals, and every day I'm like, oh, I should do another one. But, like, as I've been doing comics with publishers, I'm making the exact same books. I just get, my favorite thing about, the only reason I'm working with publishers is I get more resources to work with other artists. Like, I get to work with people who draw better than me that I could not possibly pay. But besides that, it's the same thing. Like, but in comics, you just do whatever you want, so that's nice.
On Newgrounds, Bellev's Fox asks, how much do comics have in common with storyboards for animation?
Do you say on Newgrounds?
Yeah, we post our podcast on Newgrounds every time.
I didn't need to hear that Newgrounds was still active. But I
mean,
honestly,
but that's the thing is like everyone's abandoning these, the
sense.
Instagrams but Newgrounds has been a place for drawing and animation and artists, and it's never left. And so I do think there are people that are going back to places like that.
I think it had a renaissance, and I think it's very inspiring, and I think it's also become a much more, like a much kinder space than it used to be.
All the spaces did.
Yeah.
About 5 years ago, I went back to Something Awful, and that is a much nicer space than it used to be.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's all old people. It's like it's not the Something Awful it used to be. But I think they also had some kind of renaissance too, because it's active.
Yeah. And shout out to the creative Newgrounds, Tom Fulp. He actually reached out to us. He had heard our podcast and asked if we would be able to start posting and that he would front page it. And so he's helped us get into the Newgrounds thing again,
Honestly, considering secretly going on Newgrounds and putting comics there while on break. I forgot the question. I am so sorry.
That you're all good. Honestly, I've been thinking the same, like on the down low. I'm like, maybe I should start posting there. How much do comics have in common with storyboards for animation? That's the question.
Everything and nothing. It's hard for me to answer that because like I legitimately think everything is the same thing in art.
Yeah.
It's the formatting. If you think you can just go from comics to storyboarding or storyboarding to comics, you're deluding yourself. It's not a one-to-one translation at all. All of the skills overlap, but the way you present the information is very different. And like you can see it in like storyboard people's first comics when they're not super into comics, or the other way around.
Yeah.
Like I imagine a lot of people coming into comics. When I got my storyboarding job, I downloaded so many storyboards and was just meticulously studying them. All of the skills are the exact same skills, but you cannot just do the other after doing one.
Yeah. I feel like a big part of it is the relationship to time. It's easier to have
that's
time.
The big thing.
It's easier to have time skips, and you're not quite as beholden to backgrounds or even camera angle necessarily.
Well, the things that happen between the panels, you have to put on the storyboard.
Yes.
Yes.
And like when I do storyboards, I have other people's boards who I think are very good next to me, and also ones that I don't know that I would have thought are good, but I talk to people in storyboard. I'm like, who are the best storyboard artists? And people in storyboards gave me stuff that I would not have put next to me. And I will, like, as I'm working, look at those and I'm like, how are they doing these things?
I'm curious who are the best storyboard artists and how do we get them on the
know.
show? I wonder what are the answers here? I want to find them.
I honestly can't remember the names.
No, it's all good. I didn't want to put you on the
spot.
But
I will say, now that I'm not saying names, there is somebody who worked on a cartoon who does the most beautiful storyboards I've ever seen in my life. And their comics are not very approachable. I get no pleasure from reading their comics. Beautifully drawn, but the skills just did not translate.
I think it's very...
Is it Michael DeForge? No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
I
like his comics.
I love his comics as well. I really look up to his work in terms of also the way he thinks. But I don't. Does he do storyboards? I don't think he does storyboards.
No, I think he's a background, either a character designer or a background artist. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
No, but I know what you mean though, Michael, in the sense that like when I first started in storyboards, I actually didn't watch a ton of movies or TV, and most of my references were from comics, and I made a lot of like simple mistakes. Like, for example, this is so silly, but like I would draw characters with their mouth closed when they had dialogue.
I don't do that in comics. If somebody is speaking in a panel, it's a huge thing for me. Their mouth has to be open, even if both of their mouths are open and they're both speaking.
That is so funny. That's a manga thing. That's a manga thing because I used to read a shit ton of manga, and they will often do the smile and the speech bubble.
Yeah, that drives me crazy because in my mind, a comic isn't a picture. It's a drawing of things happening in time. And like when that's like the one thing, like I think manga is so good. Like, it's so cool that there's, like, an industry that works like that at that level. But that's, like, one of those things for me, like, a drawing, if two people are talking, both their mouths have to be open, because you're not looking at the whole image at the same time. You're looking at pieces of the image in the order that it's laid out to show you. And by the time you get to that face, you've read their speech balloon and they're talking. And you have a specific expression while you're talking. This is like one of those peeves that I will put down a book sometimes.
That is so funny.
Like,
I love that.
I'm very neurotic about the structure of comics.
It is a very different way between Western comics and manga of the way they are paced and the rhythm of them. I personally think manga is closer to storyboards than Western comics. I think Western comics are more from illustration and maybe like even design. So you can have way more information. You can pack a lot more information in one Western comic panel than a manga panel should be read in just like half a second. It's like not meant. Obviously, if you read Berserk, hopefully you spend a little bit more time than half a second, but it's kind of boarded in a way that you can just kind of go through the page that fast.
I'm very careful when I do a hyper detailed background to not have dialogue in the panel. Because I want the reader to stop and look at the background.
I think a lot about that.
And that's selfish. It's selfish of me, but I have a lot of panels where it's showing the setting and there's no dialogue. And it's because I want the reader to stop and realize... Because you get into this pattern of text, face, next, text, face, next, text, face, next. And I think taking the dialogue out on those... Like, all my books have 2-page spreads all over them, and there is almost never dialogue on them. And that's a very intentional choice, because it's like, I know if I put dialogue, they need to know the sentence after the dialogue.
That's funny, because I think I haven't landed on a, answer to this, but I always wonder, should I put text on an image that I want people to spend more time on? Because I do know that the way most people read, they will just look at a picture very fast. But if there's some text in there, that will kind of hold them in the image a little bit longer. So sometimes I'm like, maybe if I want somebody to look at a picture I did draw for a very long time, maybe I'll just write a couple of things, even if they're just to hold them in there.
You tell us in the comments, guys. Tell us in the comments. Do you look longer at pages if there's dialogue or if there's not dialogue on like a beautiful page?
I want to know.
You will see in all my future books there will be way more text in the background now. as long as it's not because if it's mid conversation, the focus needs to be on, because that is the message of what I'm trying to do. Is like it has to be focused on the conversation.
Yeah.
So I'll erase really good drawings if I feel like it stops the conversation in a page. Just because it's like, it's heartbreaking, but it's like not the experience I'm attempting to manipulate the reader into having. It's a terrible way to phrase that sentence.
You don't want them to be like, wow, what an impressive drawing. You want them to be like, this. Look at this moment that these characters are having. You don't want that to distract them.
Yeah, I'm like, when I'm doing pages, I'm trying to get the reader to do something very specific.
Sure.
Like the whole time. And I should not have called that manipulate the reader.
It's sort of true.
It feels mean.
It feels mean, but sometimes you gotta call something what it is.
Yeah.
You're like the dungeon master manipulating your readers, right?
I constantly joke, okay, this is really dark, but, I constantly joke that we won't ever be out of a job because what we do is not that different from, propaganda. If somebody needed us to make one of their messages look real good, we have the skills to do it. Which is, so it's something to think about. I mean, we have a lot of, I think when you're an artist and you think about these things, you have to be aware of it because of the power that it holds. That's all and sometimes it's scary, but sometimes it's also kind of cool.
Do we have another reader question?
We're out.
We do have one last question to ask, though, which is, when you have, or if you have, creative block, how do you work through it? What's your process when you're kind of stumped or you don't have an idea?
I think creative block is an illusion. I think it's a perception of failure. I just keep moving and keep working. And because I'll be like, I can't draw today. And then I draw, and then I look at it a week later, I'm like, that was a fine drawing. And that is not easy to do. But I genuinely think, like, because, you know, I play live music, and there's something very important I do where I perform as best as I can, and I do not think about how I feel about the performance. Because I see the Instagram stories people post back, and it's like, there are nights I feel like I'm on fire, I'm killing it. I see the video, I'm like, this is the worst performance I've ever done. And there are nights where I think I did a really bad job, and I see it back, and it's like, that is the tightest thing I've ever seen. And, you know, how hungry I am, like, my brain chemistry affects how I perceive the quality of what I'm doing. Like, I don't think, like, and this thing is like, I'll feel like I don't have any ideas. And it's just like, I just keep working. Because, you know, if you truly don't have any ideas, you just do the bad ideas. And you can evaluate whether it's good or bad later. You don't have to publish everything. But I think that, and once again, very difficult to push through that. But I will also go back to the well. Like, I'll be like, okay, I can't write a comic today. I'm going to just do a comic that's just like this other comic I know how to do. And then get that momentum. Because it's almost always never about the actual work. It's about my perception of the work. And I don't trust my own perceptions on that.
So it's sort of like rather than that answer being yourself, it's you convince yourself of those things, and you've came upon those realizations, and that's what you tell yourself. So you're still working through these situations, but you have to tell yourself a certain thing. You have to have learned that way of coping with yourself and wrangling yourself a little bit.
Also, sometimes I am right. Sometimes I am making garbage. Like, it does happen, but sometimes I'm making garbage when I think I'm on fire, too. I will draw a comic that I think is the greatest thing I've ever done, and I'll look back at it in a month, I'll be like, what was I? Like, I must have just had, like, a really good meal. Somebody said I was beautiful at the supermarket. Like, my day was just going well. The comic was not actually good. Like, there's some stuff that I thought was great, and in hindsight, I'm just like, this is terrible. Also, like, specifically with music, it's easier to get that feedback, because there's, like, there's stuff that I'm like, this is the worst thing we've ever made. And it's, like, the thing that it's, like, people are like, why'd you stop playing that one? And it's like, the stuff you're doing is fine, but why aren't you playing that one? And it's like, oh, I thought that was, like, really bad. I thought it was overly repetitive. I thought it was uninspired. And it's just like, it's not my job to judge my work. It's my audience's job. It's my job to do the best thing I can. Mm-hmm. But if it's bad, people are going to forget. So I don't. I've made some stinkers. I will not tell people what they are, because it's not my job. And also, I would like the people to engage with what I do kind of at the pace and way at which feels natural. So, like, when people are like, what's the best book to buy? I always just say, my most recent book. And, you know, then they're going to go down the rabbit hole. Because the book I think is the worst, that objectively is the worst, lots of people really like. It's a lot of people who talk to me, they're like, why don't you do this one anymore? And I'm not going to say what it is, because I don't want people to not, you know, but it's just like, I also think it's the worst one. I thought it was...
Why do you think, like, just in general themes and or ideas, why do you think it's the worst one?
I think I was trying to do something artistically that I wasn't prepared for. But I mean, also, it's how you do stuff. Mm-hmm. So when I see it, I see that it was early in trying to do a specific thing. And also, I can see my sales. I can see the numbers on stuff. I know what is or isn't working. But, you know, it does for some people.
Oh, well, I thought you meant that it was doing really good sales as well.
Well, no, but that's the thing is, it's not the best seller. But I do find the people who like it and want to read it seem to be some of the most enthusiastic, like, interactions I've had with people, like, shows and stuff. They're like, I really liked it. Like, anytime someone's, like, crazy about a character, it's one of those. And it's just like, oh, I got to do that again now that I know what I'm doing. But
that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Reboot. No, I'm joking. You don't have to reboot.
Well, all my stuff is in the same universe, so it's very easy to bring that back. That's kind of in the place. I feel like at this point, anyone who knows my work knows what I'm talking about. But the good news is that that's a big part of the next collection I'm doing. So hopefully
you heard it first on Creative Block.
Yeah, got really into the way Haruki Murakami structures stuff, where it's like two divergent stories that come together at the end, and it's feels like it makes no sense. And I'm like, I need to do that. So I'm just doing that, where one of it is this book and the other one is the current book, and then it kind of collides in a very ugly way.
That's fun. Like, playing with that kind of stuff, like, you know, playing with, like, story structure and stuff like that, that's when it gets, like, really, really fun.
It's the only thing I get excited about, is the, like, structure and patterns.
And, you know, there's something that's very, very predictable in structures and patterns, and that is when something comes to an end.
Yeah. And I would like to end by saying I do not smoke weed. I feel like with a lot of stuff I've been saying, it sounds like I smoke weed. I do not smoke weed.
That's so funny that you're so, like, that you're...
We can't even see Michael because there's so many clouds around him from all the weed he's smoking.
That is my vape. That is a nicotine vape. No, but no,
there's no smoke. There's no smoke at all.
Yeah. I usually like don't talk about this stuff, and I'm at a point now where like I'm just gonna say the random thing, and I feel like I sound like I smoke weed, and I do not smoke weed. I don't care if anyone smokes weed; that's fine. But I feel very.
We're having an introspective podcast. It's okay for you to have some thoughts. It's all right.
I feel like I'm just hitting the point in my career. I've had a lot of these thoughts for a long time, and I didn't feel sure of them. And I'm hitting a point now where I'm still probably wrong. But I have, like... The methods and thoughts have apparently worked. And the intuitions. Like, I really do think it's all about shape. And that's it. I don't smoke weed.
And with that is the end of this Creative Block. Michael, thanks for being our guest and sharing your story.
I just need my last sentence to be I don't smoke weed.
Do you have anything that you want to promote?
Oh, sign up for my mailing list. I'm going to start posting there soon. It's sweater.substack.com. I am going to actually post there while I'm taking a break from social media. And I'm actually about done with some writing on how I feel about art that hopefully also does not sound like I don't smoke weed.
Well, and I also want to give a quick shout out to our listeners. Follow us on social media at CRTV Block, where we ask for drawing prompts, questions to ask our guests. Huge thanks to our editor Clemens for editing the podcast, Marco for helping us produce the show, and Abuka for creating the short clips
that we have been putting out. If you love our show, then support us on Patreon. Becoming a patron gets you early access to interviews and access to our Discord community. Another great way you can support us is to like, subscribe, comment, all of these things.
Call to action.
Call to action. Engage with our content.
Help!
This helps with the help us. Click the link in the description of this episode to subscribe to Michael's Substack and also to find our Patreon. I have been your host, V.
And I have been your host, Sean. Keep being creative, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
All right.
I don't smoke weed.